So I messaged Rory 2 days ago. Hey man, yeah, we've got a podcast and stuff. We've got a six-pack coming on. You wanna join us? He goes, yeah. Sounds good. What time zone is it going to be in? Oh, like, motherfucker, man, we live in the same country, man. Oh no, we're not quite the Joe Rogan of powerlifting just yet, but
obviously not a fan of New Zealand's number one podcast.
What time zone?
My bad, guys. You said 9 o'clock and Ryan's going to be there. And I'm like, 9 o'clock Ryan's time is like 1 a.m. my time.
It depends.
I'm sure you guys, like, Ryan's great, but I don't want to hang out with him at 1 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Oh, come on. Let's do it. 1 a.m.
Unless it's in person and we're all drinking. Then it's a different story.
Whereabouts are you, Rory? You're in
Auckland.
We're in the same city then, eh? Okay,
we must be like less than 20 kilometers from each other right now.
Holy shit, dude. You guys got to start doing them live.
We're going to do it live, eh? Yeah, exactly, eh? So, yeah. And Jackson's in Palmy, which is what, I don't know, 5 hours, 7 hours away? 7 hours
That's what, yeah.
A drive?
It must be 7 or 8, surely.
Oh, damn. That's a decent drive.
Yeah, 30 minutes on the plane, 35 minutes on the plane.
At least I'm on the same island now, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, funny about that, so we did like this mass road trip to move up here like last week, and it's like we were traveling for like 13 hours. It was like a 11-hour drive or some shit. But I was listening to I just had some podcasts going in the car, you know, and it got to the end of the most recent King of the Lifts episode, and Six is like, all right, team, we need to like tighten this up because you know that there's people on road trips that are still fucking listening. And I was like, yeah, that's me. That's definitely me.
Listen, sometimes you get a little loose after like 3 hours or so. And I think it was Rory who was like, man, nobody's listening to this shit anyways. It's okay. I was like, after 3 hours, and some people were messaging me and I sent Rory screenshots. Like even Lane Norton was like, bro, I'm listening. I got long workout sessions, man. Be careful. Don't get too loose at the end.
Yeah, I was most definitely still listening.
Is Lane like doing weights while he's listening to you? Or is he on the damn?
Yeah, like sometimes people. So that's the thing with podcasts, right? I've had people come on. I remember back in the day, I was like, I wonder if people listen how long people listen to. And then, and some people like, I don't think people listen past 45 minutes anyways. And then with a podcast, man, when you have like, some of us have like crazy long workouts or driving, where you just throw that shit on in the background and people listen right through. It's just in the background. It's background noise. If they're like cleaning around the house, or drive to work and then catch the second half on the drive home from work, or you're lifting weights and you got a 2-hour session, you just rock and roll, just put it on the background. And then if you're hitting a PR, maybe put on a song, but for the most part, you know what I mean? Like people listen, man, if you could drag them out big and people will just come back if they want to finish it later. They go for a walk with a podcast. I do that.
They do. I used to have a 3-hour commute a couple of jobs back, and I would listen I'd do the podcast on the way in, and then depending on how well the day went, I'll do the podcast on the way home. But if it's just a full-on day, I was just like, nah, just put on some music, man. I just can't take it. I can't take any thinking. I can't take any more thinking. I just want to tune out.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it is just like white noise or whatever in the background. It kind of depends, and it depends on what you want to listen to for that white noise in the background. If you want like more powerlifting when you're doing powerlifting, or if you want to like switch it up with something like, you know, the usual.
Well, I mean, at this stage, can we still say that Greg does powerlifting?
I don't compete, so what's the criteria these days, man?
Yeah,
you lift though. Do you still lift?
I still lift, yeah. But you know, we had this conversation at one point. If you don't compete, can you call yourself a powerlifter?
Yeah. What do you guys reckon?
Ooh.
Oh, here we go.
I reckon you have to have competed to be able to call yourself a powerlifter. Right.
Yeah,
like if you go to the gym and you squat and you bench and you deadlift, you're not a powerlifter. You're just a person who likes strength training, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but you're not a powerlifter. I don't know about having stopped. I don't know, because that would make me not a powerlifter either. That just makes
me, Rory, and Six ago.
Well, here's the thing. So then, if we think about it, like if you were a soccer player or like a football, rugby, whatever, and then you stop, are you a retired rugby player? Do you say I'm a rugby player. I'm a retired rugby player. Thing is, though, the difference is you're still powerlifting. You're just not competing. That's the little bit of it. Most people, when they stop doing rugby, like, okay, I'm probably done. My body's done. I'm not going to do it anymore. So I'm not sure. It's a little bit different. And powerlifting is a weird, unique community and lifestyle that's like a little different. We're almost like we're borderline cultish. Like we have you know what I mean? Like we are really complicated too. They're like, when you dive into powerlifting world, it is a complicated, different sectors and different, like, you know what I mean? So
tribes,
that's why
tribes.
Man, I think it's a little bit different. I think when you're in, blood in, blood out, man.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
only way you get out is if you kill somebody now.
Yeah.
Like a gang.
Even then, Belarus is still in. That's crazy.
Whoa, shit, son. Oh, shit.
Yeah, no, I can't say that.
Jackson coming in hot. Whoa.
It's a Sunday morning, man. I've missed this.
Yeah.
No,
I would have got another
in.
coffee if I knew it was going to be like this.
Yeah, wow. Now he woke up and chose violence this morning
it.
for you guys.
You know,
all right.
But like,
Good
you
stuff.
when like the powerlifting's multi-layered, when you have to like explain a meme to your friends, you know, like you're like, hey, this is fucking hilarious. And they're like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's it, man. It's weird. I don't know if other sports have like adapted to the online social media quite like powerlifting in terms of like, we don't have like mainstream to a large extent viewership on like TV broadcasts, major podcasts that have like for real sponsored backing, like Spotify picks up. It's crazy, man. The deals you hear Spotify doing and shit like that. Like we don't have none of that. And yet we have so much infrastructure in place by us because we're so freaking involved in this hobby sport. It's crazy. And we get so passionate. We know who everybody is, what everyone's doing, and have all these crazy views on things. And like, I don't know if there's no way like water polo's like that. There's no way like fucking water polo guys are like this in this shit where they have all these different water polo podcasts and they like search the top 10, do scouting preview shows, recap shows, and like I get reposts of like these water polo guys training and shit. I can't see other sports like equestrian or anything like that quite like this, where it's this far gone. And literally, like, people come on there debating and yelling at each other's face. I've said terrible things to Rory, I think, at this point, and it's just make us grow closer. But but it's pretty unique, I think, to powerlifting, considering we're so niche.
I feel like powerlifting's like the black sheep of the family. You know, people
what
say
is?
what like the black sheep of the family. You know, people
Powerlifting,
say,
yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? Powerlifting. Oh, it's like weightlifting. Oh, you know, it's like saying, yeah, I play football. I play footy. Oh, like the All Blacks, and no, like Aussie rules. Oh, okay. You know, it's like, yeah, it's the unknown. It's the unknown for so many people, and yeah.
Maybe the fact that we get it makes us drawing closer. I don't know though. I don't fully understand why our sport of all sports has been like just blown up when social media came in with like the podcasts, and like we have fucking like YouTube celebrities and like Instagram celebrities, and like again, you're not going to see that in like the high jump. You know what I mean? They're in the fucking Olympics, for God's sake. And I don't think their community of high jumpers are quite as like, there's like high jump podcasts and freaking like high jump Instagram and YouTube stars, like, and they're in the Olympics. And that like, yeah. Watch, I'm gonna get DMs like, excuse me, sir. But I don't know, man. It is kind of crazy when you think about it that it ended up like this.
King of the jumps. I can just
King of the jumps. I'm gonna get it.
I actually just found like 3 or 4 high jump podcasts. So
shut up. Are you serious?
We've got Just Fly Sports. We've got AFTS.coach. We've got something called Power Hour. We've got Operation High Jump.
Damn.
It's a thing, man.
Damn.
Oh my God, there's a high jump community. And I just declared war on them, gentlemen.
And I bet Spotify just picked them all up too. God damn.
Spotify, they're probably making a killing.
Yeah,
exactly. God.
What's happening with Spotify? Because I see they're making some big moves. A lot of the podcasts I listen to now are going to be Spotify exclusive. And I'm thinking, what's Apple done? Have Apple gone and screwed things up for everybody else, and Spotify picking up all the pieces, or what's going on?
Rory, you might know more. I know there was somebody was on a podcast I was listening to, and they're like, did you hear, there was 2 girls at a podcast. One of them bounced. and now it's just the one. And they like, she took it from, listen to this story. Okay, this is the ultimate fuck me story. This is almost as bad as, you know, Hulk Hogan was offered the George Foreman grill, and he said no to the George Foreman grill and instead took the meatball maker and thought that was the way to go. And we all know what George Foreman got it second and said, yeah, well, hell yeah, I'll take the George Foreman grill. Rest is history, right? This is almost as bad as that, not quite as bad. But again, now Hulk Hogan's gonna be pissed. But so this podcast with these two girls were I forget what it's called. It's like they talk about like dating and sex, like it's like people call in and stuff like that. Is like raunchy, but is like funny at the same time. And the one girl's manager was her boyfriend, which is probably never a good idea. And he probably had no real credentials. And they started getting fairly big. And he told the one, you know, you should be being paid more because you're actually the star, I think. Like, I think you're actually the reason why people are coming in, blah, blah, blah. So they got in a dispute and he fucking pulled heavy, like gave an ultimatum, wasn't met. We bounce. It wasn't met. So they leave. 6 months later, so this other girl's like, I need to start doing interviews. And it went from kind of a quirky, raunchy one to like more interviews, a little more substance to it. Still funny, still kept its like nature, but the interviews started getting, it actually grew. Spotify comes like a $60 million deal.
Oh.
And this other girl's boy gotta be looking at her boyfriend like, oh, man, yo, if this isn't love, you know, this is, you fucked me. Like this is bad, man. Like, what does that boyfriend do when he sees his girl, when that like is in all the headlines and he sees her in the morning? He's like, oh shit, I don't know what to say.
Oh, well,
but
you better go stack those supermarket shelves, mate. You know, pay those bills.
Yes, Spotify is snatching up YouTube, like people who are dropping them on YouTube or wherever. And Spotify's coming and be like, if you're Spotify exclusive, millions and millions set for life, ridiculous money. It's crazy. Probably every one of those fucking high jump ones is on Spotify.
I tell you what, I'm gonna check my junk folder now, Jackson. Something's gonna miss, my friend. Something's gonna miss.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that's so you don't want to miss, man.
Check that spelling on our email addresses there.
Yeah, we'll have to barter though, man. Like to go Spotify exclusive. I don't know. I've had emails from YouTube, you know, they want to keep us on there.
I've had emails from YouTube, but yeah, more warnings.
Next time we tune in, it's Greg and Rory in the same fucking room on that. Watch how quickly Rory cozies up to you. Watch how quickly he cozies up if you make a Spotify deal. It's like, fellas, I think we had chemistry. I don't know. Is it me?
Man, for $60 million, I'll do a lot of cozying.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It looked like he just woke up. I'm like, what the fuck is going on over here, fellas? But,
damn.
So how you guys been with the podcasting?
We're having fun, Jackson. Hey, we have a bit of fun. Well, last week we had Gwayne Johnson. I don't know if Rory, you probably know him, he's Australian. Gwayne Johnson, he's the one that's got that famous scene. He's just squatted 400 at the Pro Raw, and he's got Arnold watching him, and he nails the lift, and he comes off, and he gives Arnold a high five at about 400 kilometers an hour, and almost rips his arm off. It's fucking fantastic.
Dude.
You know, and we said to him, what's going through your head at the time? He said, I had no idea. It was just all in the moment. And he came off and he was 150% hyped. And Arnold was just sitting there and he just like almost took his arm off. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant video.
Gotta be careful with Arnold. He's a treasure. We gotta be we need to preserve him.
He's got this funny story. That because Arnold's PA came over and said, okay, like, you know, guys, Arnold's gonna come through at this stage. What are you going to put on for him? What are you going to show him? And Gwayne's coach, Marcos.
Hang on. We've got to fact check that, bro. Max is his coach.
Marcos is sorry, Max.
God damn, son. We can make fun of people who aren't here because they can't fact check us, like the high jumpers.
Max Markopoulos. Right. So Marcos's son is the coach, and the PA comes over and says, "All right, Gwayne, Arnold's coming in. What are we going to do? What are you going to show him?" And Marcos just chips in and says, "You're going to see a 400 kilo squat." And the Gwayne had no one had ever talked to him about what he was going to lift that day. So of course he's just been told he's going to do a 400 kilo squat. And so the PA walks away and he's like, "Damn, what the fuck, man?"
he goes,
"What
by
the hell?
Who?
Yeah.
Do you have another lifter here?
I was going to open on 320. And then of course Arnold, he's surrounded by 1 million people, so he's making his way through the Pro Raw, and it's going a lot slower than it should be because he wants to greet and say hello to the fans. And And then someone comes over. Was this the story, Jackson? Someone comes over and says, "Look, guys, can you slow down the meat?
Yeah.
Could you have?"
I was there. They were pissed.
Well, tell us about it,
dude. Because it was Pro Raw 8. It was the first one they had at the Arnold's, and it was just before I went over to the UK, and so I went over and did it. And like, where I was the flight before Gawain because I was like a light boy. So then I was in the warm-up room off to the side, and yeah, the big boys are squatting, and you know, like, they take decent rest times, but like when we talk to Gawain, like, he'll get through a whole squat workout in like an hour or like less than, you know. So he's sitting there, and yeah, and there was nothing. So there's this massive crowd. It was like 2,000-3,000 people, and the stage is just empty. And they've got this guy Tim who does like horse racing commentary. He's like their MC, and he does the rugby league as well. And so he's just sitting there like trying to come up with content to keep everyone like entertained.
Fuck.
Like,
he's got some stand-up comedy he's trying.
Yeah, he's trying hard, man. He's like,
have you guys heard the one about the guy who walks into the bar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, fuck it, we'll just do it. And then all of a sudden, it was like you know, like that fairy tale rubbish where like Arnie then like comes through and he's like standing in front, but it was sick though. And then yeah, Gawain almost killed him.
If I was the PA for Arnold, and I asked them to slow down the meat, and they're like, "Oh, come on, oh damn," I'd be like, "Gentlemen, when God asks you to take a seat,
Yeah.
you don't look for a chair.
No, exactly. Yeah.
You okay? You just fucking seat."
Yeah.
It's that thing with powerlifting again, how we're like, hang on, okay, there's Arnold coming and he's asking us to slow down the meat. Nah, fuck that, we're gonna powerlift. You know what I mean? Like, the priorities.
Yeah. Well, it is Arnold. Arnold comes through, his PA's like, "Gentlemen, keep those knees wrapped, okay? Stay fresh, stay ready. We don't know when he's coming in." Yeah, it's 5 minutes in those knee wraps.
20 minutes. It's okay.
Yeah.
20 minutes. You'll be good. Relax.
Just sit there. Stay still.
He's coming.
And then, we had with Gawain the week before. We had Stan Efredine. Oh man, that guy can talk, eh?
Yes, sir.
I think we just said, "No, how you doing, Stan?" And that was it. That was all he said.
Dude, I had him on a few years ago, and same experience. He's one of the few people who came on with written notes and points that he wanted to hit, and I'm like, "Holy shit, man!" Yeah, right. I remember I told one of my buddies who was into nutrition and bodybuilding, who's going to co-host it with me. This is like a few years back, different co-host at the time, and he couldn't make it. And I'm like, "Dude, what the shit? I don't know if I'm comfortable with the questions. Like, I don't know what to ask. I was really going to lean on you." And he's like, "Don't worry. You ask him how's his day, and then you'll say thank you for coming." 2 hours later, I'm like, "All right."
Oh, man.
And that's pretty much how it went.
It was, yeah. I think he's done so many seminars now, and he's been selling his product after product after product. Like, how many businesses, Jackson? Multiple businesses,
I think five or six like multi-million-dollar businesses.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Just mad dog.
Yeah.
It's one of those things though that, like, I guess you see a lot of from the bodybuilding world, especially, and in the powerlifting world, but a lot of the skills are very transferable, you know. So the boys and girls who then, you know, put all their effort into powerlifting, and then they're like, right, fuck it, I'm going to monetize this and turn it into a business, or they've got another job outside of powerlifting that they can use the same skill set for. You know, it's and he's done it.
And you see a lot of them have moved into other sports as well. They're taking the skills they've learned in powerlifting, specifically for the strength side of things, they've taken into other sports now. So we've noticed that with Chad Wesley-Smith and Stan as well. Stan with UFC. I think Chad's working with all sorts of teams now, outside of powerlifting. So
is he really?
Yeah. I think he on one podcast he said he was less focused now on powerlifting and more so with some of these bigger teams with their strength programs.
That's the same thing with the strength guys. Jason Tremblay, they train like strength guys like Taylor Atwood and Eli Burks and like a bunch of world champions, and Jason Tremblay works with he's in Canada as well. And he works with the Calgary Flames, which is like in the NHL, a pro hockey team in the NHL, like millions of dollars in that. Like it's a massive organization, but he works with them now. And like, I think the bigger we get as powerlifting, I mean, the more reputable it is. Now, guys like Jason went to school for this and whatnot. They're not just like, hey, but intuitively making some, templates or whatever. He like legit has, but on the same time, not only do they have the schooling, they want to see what have you done in terms of like resume. And previously, I think powerlifting wouldn't have had this, but now if he's like, well, here it is. And you could say like X amount of world champions, et cetera. And it's a far more, if they hop online after research and took a look at some of the worlds and whatever, they'd be like, oh shit, this is legit. Like there's like 100 countries at the world championships. This is not small time. So it'd be like, gotcha. You got the schooling. We do take that as experience. Whereas previously, I think we're getting more and more reputable. People are able to like branch out. So what do you want to do? You want to work with like American football players, rugby players, whatever. It's viable. There's weightlifting, there's strength and conditioning everywhere. I mean, Rory, you go ahead.
For a lot of sports, strength and conditioning is almost the afterthought, right? Like you have your structured like team practice or whatever, and then you have your 2 to 3 strength training sessions outside of that. And like there's and for a lot of sports, at least historically, it's been like, oh yeah, go to the gym and just pick an exercise and do it for a while, right?
It's crazy though. Like some sports still don't take it seriously. Like when we were over in the UK, I was doing personal training and powerlifting coaching, but I had my name. You know how you just put your name on like, since we were only over there for a bit, I put my name on like their versions of like, I don't know what you guys have in Canada, but in New Zealand we have like Seek and stuff like that, like the job seekers sort of thing, so you can see what sort of jobs pop up in whatever world. And so I put my name down for strength and conditioning jobs that might come up, etc. And this one came up, and it was like a junior strength and conditioning coach for I believe it was Liverpool, like the football team. And I was like, all right,
that's big. That's big time.
Now's my time to shine. Let's go. Click, like, get more details. And I like look at the starting salary. So over in the UK, probably I think the average salary was like £15,000 or something. That's like, it's not much. And then in London, the average was like 21,000. Like, so in the central city, it's like a bit more because it's more expensive to live. But like, and so I click into this. I'm like, Liverpool junior strength and conditioning coach. This is gonna be sick. Like, click in. And it's £18,000.
Oh, what the hell?
And I was like, are you actually serious? Like,
what do the players get?
What? Yeah, you're paying this guy here like $100 million a year, and your insurance policy to make sure he can play, you're going to pay him $18K.
Yeah.
Or, like, what do you like? This is why every football season you see like torn hamstrings literally every game.
Yeah.
It's so this is kind of a few years back. We have what we in Canada like an OHL, which is like a feeder league to the NHL. It's the Ontario Hockey League, right? So I was training some guys like doing their weight room programming. I came in, a guy reached out and he's like one of the hockey guys. And he's like, I think I want to get in like a power lifter and start like picking their brains on how this is going to be done, because we're having a hard time putting together a program, make these guys stronger, but not impact them negatively on the ice. Right. So I came in and we were talking and he's like, yes, like, I know you could do like a max lift, find out base off percentage, but it's difficult because they put like 2 hours on the ice and skate until like it's a lot of cardio. They're super tired, whatever. And I'm like, do you guys know about RPE though? Do you know about like, you could manage, keep the RPEs low, get some volume in there and just like do what you got on that day and don't force the issue if that percentage isn't there. And like, how did you structure this? What's this? And he's like, they had no idea. No. And then I'm like, well, what's the conditioning like on the ice? And he's like, man, sometimes these coaches, if you lose a game, they'll fucking skate you until you puke as punishment. Like, you're going to be fried though. You're literally going to fry their nervous system. The next game, they're far more. When's the next game? It could be the next night. Well, they're fucked. You know, like you're frying them. Like you lose a game, so I'll make you run a marathon and think you're gonna be better the next. Like you're not gonna bounce back. Like what's the thought process besides punishing them? Like, can you just call them names? Like what happened to the good old days? Like I don't know, man. So yeah, like sometimes that dialogue, it is like it's surprising how in the past they are. And we were as a sport. Powerlifting somewhat late to the game for the RPE. I had Mike Teixeira on the podcast. Like I've had him a few times, but I remember when I first had him on, he's the guy who brought the RPE rate for anyone listening who doesn't know, probably everyone does, but rate of perceived exertion or effort. And he's the one who adapted it to powerlifting where it's 2 reps in the tank, 1 rep in the tank, you know, one for your sets. But I remember finding a book, and this is like it was from the 70s, and apparently it revolutionized. It first came in for I think cycling, and then with long distance running, and those that started doing by the rate of perceived effort, it was a complete game changer for those sports. I mean, records in the years that by the certain national teams that used it, and they were doing, if it's endurance, they'd be doing like judging your heartbeat and how the heart rate came down via how many kilometers or miles you ran, et cetera. They use those kind of metrics. And so they wouldn't fry the nervous system of these runners. It wasn't just, I wrote down, you have to do 25 kilometers today, so you need to do 25 today. No, but you don't know how everyone's individually getting impacted. So instead of doing that and just doing the old school tough it out, they started being like, your pace has slowed, and judging by your heart rate, the perceived rate of exertion, they started like changing things, like started taking that data down, right? So then instead of redlining people, instead of redlining them just to be tough, like no, gut it out, they started pulling it back and keeping it at a certain level that you could keep bouncing back from. Now, fast forward, that was in like the 70s. Then other sports started around there. So then other sports started taking it in, and we did it around 2010, 11 is when Mike T got his hands on some of these, what other sports are doing. He's like, I wonder if this is adaptable to powerlifting. What if I said, I'll give you a weight, but if the weight's getting heavy, I need you to have 2 reps left in the tank close to failure, so you're never redlining, so because you could bounce back. And then we could keep this progression going. What if you can get more workouts in, more volume in per day, per week, per month, over time? I wonder if we're redlining and shooting ourselves in the foot. And then boom goes the dynamite, right? Like it's not, people still use percentages, but it's together and that's interesting. Rory, do you know some of this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I used to work with I used to make software to help Ironman athletes train to run better Ironmen. I'm never really sure what the plural of that is.
Iron people now is
Iron people.
Yeah.
And so
basic, man, let's keep it basic.
Iron people and Iron humans, and we would use RPE a lot for that, right? And like we had data with using RPE going back to probably the mid 80s, I think was the earliest data that we had at the time, and we had sort of heart rate data, respiratory data, step rate data, and we were using that to sort of drive the software that we were using to make people better now. And I mean, people in running are way worse than people in powerlifting for redlining, right? Like with powerlifting, you go close to failure, and you're like, oh fuck, if I do another squat, like I'm gonna eat it, and it's gonna be really obvious when I eat it. But when you redline when you're running, it's way harder to tell. You can be 20 minutes into a run, and then suddenly you're like, oh shit, I've been overcooking it for the last 20 minutes, and now I'm screwed. It's way easier to push yourself much too far, which was maybe why powerlifting was a little bit slower on the uptake with that. But yeah, it's been really good for powerlifting. Now, of course, we're moving to session RPEs and things like that for a lot of people.
That's crazy with the runners, because you see them at the Olympics and those big events, and it's the finals, and they've reached the last 100, 200 meters, and then they start wobbling, they start kind of running like it's The Walking Dead.
Yep.
And you think, Jesus, there must be in a world of pain.
It's like a Price is Right kind of thing, right? Like you want to pick the exact pace that you can keep up for 42 kilometers, not the pace you can keep up for 41.8 kilometers, but not the pace you can keep up for 42.2 kilometers either, right? And you have to pick that 2 hours in advance, or 2 hours and 10 minutes in advance, and try and maintain that for the entire time. That's rough, man.
I don't see the appeal with running personally, eh? I really
No, neither. That said, the last Olympics, I have this really distinct memory of watching the 10K men's finals, and Mo Farah was running, and he was blitzing everyone, and he tripped and hit the. Do you remember watching this as well, Ryan? And he got overtaken by like 8 people. And dude gets back on his feet, and he's like, this is like 6K into a 10K race. 10K at the Olympics takes what, like 20 minutes. And he's like behind, like 8th or 9th at this point, and he's just like, picks up the pace even more than he had been, and just like spends the next 4 kilometers, which is only like 8 minutes or something, like overtaking these like 8 people, and just takes it on the final straight. It was like, it was
amazing.
I hate running, but that was the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
It was so Mo Farah, he's won a couple gold medals in a couple different Olympics. He's from the UK, and I remember him taking that tumble. Here's why I was paying attention to that one, and I think that was in London. That might have been the London Olympics, yeah, which was like so home country, it was a big moment. And I remember paying attention to him. He's a small guy because it's a long distance. He's like, maybe 115 pounds ish. But if you go onto his Instagram, he's in the weight room, squatting, deadlifting, bench pressing, lifting weights. And a lot of people would have said previously, shouldn't be lifting weights because it'll slow you down, etc. So they ask him about it, like straight up power lifts. And he talks about powerlifting, which I thought was amazing. Wow. And he was like, the amount, like the resistance training, what it does for the thickness of my bone, my ligaments. And he's like, my body, I'm not going to put on a lot of weight, but it also mitigates the atrophy that I'm experiencing by doing so much distance running, which is it in turn extended my career. So because if you do so much long distance running cardio based, your muscles atrophy. It is what it is. So he's like, I could fight this, stay explosive. And then on the commentary, I don't know if you had the same commentary as I did, Rory, because I know different broadcasts will have different commentaries, but they actually said when he took that tumble, and my man tumbled, did like 6 somersaults, popped back up, and kept running like a fucking action movie. Like if he had 2 guns in his hands, it would have been like Die Hard 4 or something. It was amazing. That's my man right there. I remember my commentary on the broadcast I was watching was like, that's that powerlifting. It's made his body bulletproof. His muscles are bulletproof. Like that's what they were saying, how tough he was because of it. And I was like, fuck yeah, Mo Farah, man. I became a fan after that.
Well, I don't see why, like it just seems like logical sense that like if you can say squat 100 kilos and run your top speed is this, and your top speed is this, then if you can then stay the same body weight and squat 150, and then your running top speed is this, then obviously for a cardio based thing, you can maintain.
The old logic was that muscle slowed you down, and of course, like as people who spend a lot of time in the weight room, we know that that's not true, right? But like back in my martial arts days, people would be like, "Oh, why are you going to the gym? That'll just make you bulky and slow." And of course, like it could if you put on a bunch of weight and trained like a dumbass, not for like to potentiate your own sport. But that's what people think, and so like. I think that is sort of permeating outwards a little bit, and people start to realize that you can actually train smart for those kinds of things.
Yeah,
especially like you got guys like fucking Mike Tyson, whom you see Mike Tyson in the 80s was fucking jacked. Hand speed was phenomenal. Like when he's hitting the pads or hitting a person, and it's like holy and explosive speed, and right into like he'll take you out. He'll go 12 rounds if you want to do the cardio. Like there's nothing more tiring than like fighting for 12 rounds. Like so, I mean, I think like if you're naturally jacked, you're used to carrying that around. It's fine. Or if you're naturally small. I think they think Mo Farah would turn, like back in the day, they would have thought if you weightlift, you're going to turn into Mike Tyson.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, no, you're not, man. Yeah. You'll be fine, bro. It ain't that easy.
It's the old, like, I don't want to go in the weights room because I don't want to get too bulky.
Right.
Did you see that thing? It was someone posted it the other day. It might have been like Lane Norton or someone. And it was like a little outtake from an old magazine. and it was Charlize Theron's trainer saying that he got her to do everything with a narrow grip, not a wide grip, because the wide grip makes your muscles square and bulky. And I was
And
like,
you know what? He probably made like he probably made six figures. He probably made like $250,000 a year. It would have hurt your feelings if you found out how much he probably made.
yeah, that's
Look,
like
Charlize Theron, if you're listening and you want someone who knows what they're talking about, DM me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, come and see us. Come and see us.
That's right. Fragment that kills you, eh? When you hear silly things and that was science, man. That was like
That's
published
science,
in that was published in magazines as science at the time. Like
yeah,
it was
it's called science, honey. Look it up. You know.
Exactly.
I don't know if you guys find the same, because I'm finding it a little bit in the corporate world, but I can see it's coming from the professional, the sporting world as well. Is that a lot of what we've learned over the last several hundred years, and in the corporate world in recent years, doesn't necessarily translate or doesn't necessarily carry over into modern age. Like, people just don't tend to look back on past mistakes, past research. It's not a cumulative approach to knowledge. I see it in the corporate world. People are starting from scratch with ideas and concepts and going, hey, I think we should try this. Where do you think we should start? And then someone maybe a little bit mature and older and learned comes on and says, guys, this was been done 20 years ago. Let's not reinvent the wheel here. Let's build on this. Yeah,
we're getting down a rabbit hole here. It's like, it's reminded me of the anti-vaxxers and stuff at the moment, saying that it's comparing it to like to Hitler and stuff in the 30s coming to power. How the sheep are just letting it happen.
Oh yeah, I got DM'd by a guy the other day saying, you've got 3 years left to live if you take your COVID vaccine. 3 years.
Fuck.
Hit 140
3
followers.
years. It's called science, honey.
There's this really common problem, which I think is what you're referring to, Greg, where people take something, and if it's not a perfect match for the situation that they're experiencing, they discount everything that they've learned from that. And so, like, let's talk about like lockdown in New Zealand. Like, we've got some natural advantages that made our lockdown probably more effective than it would have been if you'd done exactly the same thing in another country. We're an island, we're far away from people, right? Like, that helps a lot. But then people look at us and they go, but because they're an island, we can't learn anything from what they did. And it's like, okay, like, that doesn't mean that there's nothing you can learn, right? Like, there was still stuff that we did that was effective, plus we were lucky. But because you're not an island, you're just going to pretend that you can ignore everything that we've done and just like start again from scratch and make a fucking mess of things. Like,
it's interesting. So I was listening to a podcast. Do you guys know who John Danaher is? By chance, he's a super duper famous jiu-jitsu coach, but he also coaches some MMA guys like George St. Pierre. And anyways, he's brilliant. So he was breaking it down like this, because he actually went to school for philosophy, and they were talking about chess masters around in the 60s, 70s. They first brought in AI to play these chess masters, and initially the humans kept beating the AI. Now, at one point, it became like almost game for game, a close battle. Then once the AI started winning, game over, because they can compute so many different possible variables. And he's like, the thing is, how we were able to keep up, and how sometimes like his approach to jiu-jitsu, and this is kind of, I'm bringing it back to what we were talking about, don't worry. He was saying he had guys that from New York, these middle-class kids would do jiu-jitsu for 5 years, and they would beat these black belts from Brazil, and it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu, who've been doing it since they're 5, and they're in their 20s or 30s. So they've been doing it for like 20 years or whatever. And they would beat them and they're only been doing it for 5 years. He's like, how did that happen? He goes, because we started doing rules where there's too many possibilities right here. So instead of me going over the decision-making you'll need to do in a 30-second, or a 3-second span when faced with these options, I'm going to make a rule you are never allowed to turn your back when in this position. Because there's a million different escapes, reversals, everything, but you're not going to be able to cover it. So here's the rule. When you're in this position, and then let them fucking focus on the 30 different variables over there, and try to remember that, by the way, because your brain only has so much capacity to keep in mind. And now I streamlined it with a series of rules. And if you just follow the rules, then I expand from there with strategy. And he's like, that's how you can, he goes, it worked with jiu-jitsu and for this, but that's how sometimes, like as a somewhat of a counter argument where you can in life, if things are too big, be like, if I could streamline this, give me a set of rules to play in, right? Like there's too many possibilities and variables. So you just cut things out and get to the point, but it doesn't always work because like you guys said, if you're like, well, fuck it, we're not looking what New Zealand did because they're an island, just makes it easier. So let's take New Zealand out. It's like,
Yeah.
well, you know,
pruning that decision tree takes expertise though, right? Like
right.
if I went, like it's been 10 years since I've done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? So if I went in now and I was like, I'm going to create a decision tree for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I would make a fucking mess of it because I have no idea what I'm talking about. Whereas someone who's been practicing BJJ for 5 years or 10 years, and you said, okay, now you prune a decision tree, then like they would do a much better job. Now taking that back to powerlifting, there's like 40,000 variables that you can put into a powerlifting program, right? Like you've got sets, reps, RPE, intensity, rest periods, exercise selection, like days of the week, blah, blah, blah. But with a little bit of expertise, you can go, look, you're a 55 kilogram woman, therefore I'm not going to put you on squatting once a week, right? Like that, I know from his prior experience that that's probably a bad idea. Whereas if you're completely reinventing the wheel every time you come across a new situation and you have no expertise, like you go through all of these like paths on the decision tree that just make absolutely no sense before you get to something sensible.
Sorry, you go ahead, Greg.
No, you go, man.
I was going to say, that's a really good point to make. You get a 57 kilo woman, you're like, this worked for Ray Williams. Let's see if it worked for me. I think we can prune that decision tree up a little bit, my man. You're starting from scratch too far.
I think people legitimately, we've talked about this a million times, and I know you have as well, like that literally people will see a workout on social media and think, okay, if Andre Melanchev can do it, so can I. I'll go and just do squat once a week. I'll go and do 20 minutes, here and there, and I'll be Andre Melanchev. But it doesn't work like that. I almost think, I think Chad Wesley Smith has come up with an AI app, and it's not an AI app, but that concept of a learning coaching app. I don't know how far away we are from that sort of technology, but that feeds in all the data around, bio data from how you're feeling, your energy levels, what you've eaten that day, how much sleep you've had, what you respond to in terms of training. I don't know how far away we are from that, but that's going to be a game changer.
100%. Yeah, like I think a lot like chess, where the amount of it just depends on because with chess, they're looking at a board and the one variables that they have to worry about is just all the different movements of the pieces, and they know all the rules. So it's that. Whereas with humans, the variables are like obviously sleep, food, stress, life stress, whatever. And then the person giving it isn't a 100% honest answer. Like, how was your sleep? It was pretty good. Come on, dog. You were up later and you were saying, or like how much you've been on your program, or like how stressful are you? Or like it's even quantifiably letting a computer know on a scale of 1 to 10, my stress level is this. On a scale of 1 to 10, like, or let's just say, okay, I got 8 hours. 8 hours is 8 hours. Well, it's not 8 hours for everybody though. So the computers, like the variables are slightly different than, let's say, the chess, where it's like, I know my knight moves this many paces and I know the possibilities with it. And that's that. The knight doesn't have, I don't care if the knight was eating well, sleeping well, his performance is just that. So it'll be interesting. I think it will for sure get better and better.
There's that great show on Netflix. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's a movie. It was a series. And it's a girl with the orange.
Queen's Gambit.
Queen's Gambit, yes. Brilliant.
Yeah.
She lies in bed, visualizes the chessboard on the ceiling, and just anticipates and just goes through every single possible combination and move, and then she does it subsequent to every game. She replays the entire game, going, okay, I should have done this. They would have done that. Then I would have done this. Then they would have done that. Oh, no, wait, and then that's not going to work. And then replay the whole thing over and over. And then these chess players go and read every single book that's written about every single game that's been played in the last 200 years. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Chess is what we would call like a well-defined problem set, right? Whereas powerlifting is what we would call a wicked problem set, where we don't know the variables that are important. Chess, like there's 64 spaces and there's 32 pieces on the board, and like that's it. Yeah. But powerlifting, it's like every variable not only exists but also exists on a continuum. Like it's not you got 7 hours of sleep or you've got 8 hours of sleep. It's like you've got 7 hours and 1 minute, you've got 7 hours and 2 minutes, and how does this information feed in? And it's probably like a sort of complicated cross function with every other variable, right? 8 hours of sleep and good nutrition means this. 8 hours of sleep and medium nutrition means that, and like so. you know,
and then life stress, like how do you deal, like nobody's doing like we all do other things, right? I do a little bit of jujitsu here and there, and that fatigues the shit out of me. But how do I quantify that? How do I, by just saying, yeah, I'm pretty tired today, right? Like it's very hard to quantify it. They do have, we're getting better. So I think something that's kind of leaning us in that direction is they actually have, and this again, when we had Jason Tremblay from the Strength Guys, they have like velocity on the bar. And it's like, what's your bar velocity today? Because you might feel, you could tell me you feel whatever. What's the bar velocity? And be like, that is considerably slower. You might be telling me one thing, but the bar speed doesn't lie. So in terms of force output or power output, you know, it's not where it was yesterday. So we could kind of acclimatize like that. So I think there's ways. We'll never fully be like chess, like Rory was saying, where it's just there's too many variables. But we will have ways of measuring to get it closer and closer and closer.
That's the thing, is that it's like you say with chess, that they've got all the data points already, whereas we're learning, right, okay, what the data points are and then how to use them, which I think, like, from listening to the Strength Guys, that's what they're very, very like, no, yeah, like you say, you can tell me you're feeling like this, but all the actual quantifiable markers, which is why a lot of us got into powerlifting, I assume it's very fucking quantifiable, like, you know, if you're good or not.
Yeah,
you know?
This is true.
Yeah, you know, you suck, but you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
you come to terms with it. You got peace.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm happy with mediocrity.
But yeah, I think that's becoming more of a thing, eh? Definitely, like tracking more data points, tracking your sleep, food, etc. Like you say, bar speed. That's mad though. Have any of you guys ever done that? I know we had Laura Segro on at one stage, and they based their entire training around that. Like, so like it's your program today for a single at, you know, 0.57.
Yeah,
True.
I do that. So all my training is, single at 0.23 meters per second, E1RM based off this to do that, and then working sets at this percent, and then change the working weight if bar speed changes by a certain amount over that.
Wow.
Those
Yeah,
sets.
the sensors on the bar and.
Yep. That's just in my little bag up there. I've got training data going back like a very long time with that. I don't trust myself with RPEs. I'm like, okay, I want to do a single at RPE 8, right? Like, and I do a single and I'm like, oh, but like, did I pause it long enough? Did I, like was it as fast as it felt like it was? And so I'm like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get a bar speed, like a velocimeter, and I'm gonna measure it. And as long as it's faster than that, I'll go up. And if it's slower than that, I'll stop. And
I wouldn't trust myself either. I'd be grinding away, going micro speed and going, no, that's only a 6.
That's fine. This is fine. This is exactly how hard I'm supposed to be going.
Yeah,
you
it's like one
you
extreme
don't know
or
my
the
heart.
other.
Yeah,
it's like one extreme or the other, eh? Like there's the people that like say Rory, who's like won't go hard enough, or you know what I mean, like will stop himself short, and then there's Greg, who's going to go like RP 12 and get like sent through the bench. You know, like,
yeah.
I go both. I go both ways. Yeah, no. A few times I go in, I feel like trash, and then my weights move really well. And sometimes I go in feeling great, and then the weights feel like trash. Like I fuck it up in both directions equally.
What is that, man? I've always wondered about that. Like I'll have a few drinks on a Friday night, and I'll go to the gym on a Saturday morning, and I'll think it's going to be shit, and it's great. Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. Yep,
I have 3 hours of sleep, and I get to the gym, and I'm like, this is going to suck, but I'm still going to do it. And then it's like the best training that I've had in a month. I'm like, what is going on? Like,
yeah.
And that's why the variables are too crazy. That's why it's like, you know what I mean? When you're trying to, well, how was the sleep? It was shit. It wasn't, I shouldn't have been able to do that. That's why I don't know how to work, but I am interested in the velocity tracker. I do need to get my hands on one, but also for coaches, if you got a client, and I've had like people on the podcast, like Joey Flex was on the podcast, and he said, without naming names, he's like, man, I got a couple clients and it's tough to rein them in. And I'm like, come on, man, that was, and I wonder if someone like Joey could be like, you know what? I'll fucking pay for the velocity tracker. I'm going to ship it to you. Let's use this. And if it goes higher than that, we know where we're at. You know what I mean? Like you could see where some coaches might be like, maybe this will be the fixer.
I think it actually makes my my drop sets better as well. I think it's really easy when you've got 6 sets of 2 or something, just to like go through the motions a little bit. But when you've got this objective measure of on previous set, your bar speed was 0.28 meters per second or whatever, I can go into the next set going like, this time I'm going to go faster than 0.28 meters per second. Or like, I'm going to keep the range of motion of the, like, cause I'm measuring ROM, I'm measuring like bar speed, I'm measuring change in bar speed. Like I'm going to keep the ROM as close between the 2 reps as I can. And so that the ROM isn't changing. And I'm like, so, you know, I'm getting 270 on the first one and 272 on the second one. And I'm like, yeah, that was a good set, but I have to do it again better next time.
There is that tendency when you've got large sets like that, just to think, okay, I'm just going to tick the box here. I'm just going to get through these 2 reps, no matter how it happens. I'm just going to get through them, and then I can tick the box afterwards to say, yeah, I did it. But quality wise, no, let's not talk about that.
If it's being measured, I can see you're 100% right. I totally go into zombie mode sometimes when you're tired and you're like, whatever. But if you start seeing it getting slower, and you're like, all right, let's go. Let's if it's being recorded, I could see where I'd be like, okay, this is getting, I got to start trying to get the certain numbers on like in terms of velocity. And it actually might improve your performance just because it's being given to you in a number. You know, I mean, just it's the same reason why they put those. I mean, they got them here in Canada. They probably got them there on the side of the road. How fast you're going randomly, it shows people, and you're like, "Oh shit!" You know, you're like, "All right, I better slow it down a stitch." But yeah, once you give the data, although like you could get lost in data. I am 100% totally fine with weighing my food and counting my macros. And some people like, be careful. I'm like, doggy, I'm all right, trust me. But I could see for some people where they could get obsessed with certain things, and it might take some fun out of it if you're just like, I don't want too much data. I don't want to know how fast I'm going. Let me just smash some weights, man. I don't want to overthink it. I can see where you don't want to get, it might start getting a little too professional. Maybe this is at the top end, but for myself, I still like it regardless. For me, data is king, and I feel actually more comfortable, and I'm less stressed or anxious about things. I'm like, because I know I'm on pace. But for some people, man, too structured, they're like,
well, it's that thing though, like you're only going to stick to it if you enjoy it, isn't it?
Right,
like,
right, exactly.
If you don't like fucking knowing how shit your sleep is, or if you don't, you know, like you're not gonna track it. And same with the food. Like, yeah, like I track my food as well. And then, but some people are like, how do you do that? And I'm like, well, you just do.
Yeah,
you know,
if you're not doing like, anything with that data, like if you're measuring your sleep and it's consistently telling you that you're shit, and then you don't do anything to make yourself less shit.
It reinforces
there's probably not much point in gathering that data, right?
Yeah.
Like,
or just reinforces, I can fucking do this in 3 hours sleep. It's like works in reverse. You're like, that's not the point of it, actually, my man. You how many calories you at, Jackson? You probably got a lot, man. You're
all of them,
big boy.
Oh, now, like, because I remember I was dieting. I mean, now it's like 5,000. Yeah.
Okay.
That's like,
Jesus,
like,
that's dieting?
Nah, that's like my maintenance. I've gone back up to maintenance because I'm like, I'm now maintaining like between 116 and 118 kilos. So what's that in pounds? Like 250 to 260 sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. I was like late sixes when I was going into comps, you know, at like 275, 125. And then, because I remember Six messaged me, it was like, dude, that French toast is fucking ludicrous. There was like 1,000 calories of French toast, and I was like, yeah, dieting, baby, let's go.
Man, you literally eat twice as much as me, and it hurts my feelings. I wish I could eat that much. It would be wonderful. Do you do like cardio and stuff to be able to do that, or no?
No.
Dextrose. Yeah, we got that from Standard 15. Just sprinkle your shit with dextrose. Doesn't matter what it is. Dextrose, sugar. Yeah, everything tastes good.
I've done that in the past. I've done like honey on rice when I just got sick of eating rice. I just put honey on my rice, and it actually is really, really nice.
Carbs on carbs.
Amazing.
Yeah,
carbs on carbs on carbs.
Yeah, more carbs. What can I put on this? I want water. I just wanted water, but I was like, I've got to drink juice.
So Six, you still training hard? You're still training like regularly throughout the week? And
yeah, I got the IPF Worlds coming up. I'm in the Masters now
as well, by the way.
We're 32 days. I think 33 days. I've got a good lift open now.
For IPF Worlds.
Is it World September 2nd? Is it?
No, 23rd.
23rd September.
So we're 9 weeks out.
Oh, is it 9 weeks out? Okay.
Well, this is
I think
or is this week about to be
days
over?
You're looking at as final noms.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
I was looking at the final nominations. The final nominations. Yeah. I'm
So
just going through the 83 kilo class now. Is you under a different name or?
I'm a master. I'm a master, though. I'm a master, my man.
I know you're a master. Yeah, but you've been going in the open. Now, can you do that in IPF? Can you say, look, no, I know I'm master 3, whatever that, but fuck that. I'm good enough for open. Can you do that?
Yeah, you can. You can, man. Yeah. There are people who you'll have people like David Ricks. Who's 62 years? Yeah, exactly.
I was just watching his squats this morning.
The 250 kilo squat, or something like that, wasn't it? Crazy.
He has a 300. I think he took 280 kilos, 616 pounds, or something like that for a set of 6. And he's just repping that out at 62 years old, and he's a 93 kilo man. Like he's just repping that out for funsies. Like he's a monster, man. And he's 62. Yeah, it's phenomenal. So yeah, to answer your question. You can, if it doesn't matter, you could sign up if you're a master or a junior. If you're a junior and you want to swing with the big boys, the big girls, whatever have you, you can enter into the open early if you like. John Hack did that famously. John Hack did that against Brett Gibbs. And afterwards, he admitted, I had him on the podcast. This is like way back in 2016, but I remember him saying, he's like, I'm going to be honest, for a minute there, I was like, should I go in the open against Brett? Or should I just go in the juniors and for sure be a IPF world champion? Because he wanted to win an IPF world title, move on to the untested, collect all the titles and whatever, and just push it. And so he was like, like when you sign up like the week before, the night before, when you're confident right up until you fly in and you see the other guy at the hotel and you're like, fuck, okay, here we go. Was this a mistake or what? Should I have just hit a junior and I know I would have crushed the juniors?
Sounds like my entire bodybuilding career was that. Yeah, walking in going, this is a mistake.
Tell me about bodybuilding. How long were you doing bodybuilding for?
I did it for, I did two comps. I did 3 cuts, 2 comps. Came in and I did my first novice was 2014, 2015. Won the class. But let's got a little asterisk there. One guy walked in and done a rugby game that morning. One guy came in, didn't even have a tan on. So it wasn't, the competition was not stacked. That class was not stacked.
Standard win, baby. Just a win.
Yeah. So I won that and I thought, okay, I'm on a roll here. I did an event the next year. It was a regional event and Rory will understand how insignificant this event was. It was something in Waikato. And I busted my ass for like 20 weeks, and I came in and I got a third. I think I got third in the class, and I'd almost killed myself for that event. Because dieting is it's not my forte, and I had quite a difficult job at the time, and dieting was so restrictive. I just probably wasn't doing enough cardio, so they cut out the carbs to start with, and then cut out the fat. So I was literally just eating protein meals. All day long, and of course there was no energy going in, and you would stare at the wall, and 10 minutes would go by, and so I almost lost my job because I was trying to run a conference at the time, and it just wasn't happening. And at that point, coming in third, that was the end of my bodybuilding career.
Listen, people don't realize like food literally can affect like food and body fat, your hormones, who you are, your whole function. It's not just, well, I'll be good because I can stand being hungry. My friend, like you could destroy your body, like your hormone levels and the whole nine, like, and for the women, like you could lose, like stop getting your period, start getting like it's drastic. It's very extreme sport to be undertaking.
It's starvation. You have to.
It is starvation. It is voluntary starvation. And what we know in powerlifting, what we know now, nutrition wise, and the dissemination of information because of social media and all the different podcasts we have now versus beforehand, we had all types of funky ideas. I mean, we're a little older. I'm in my 40s too, so I remember buddies doing bodybuilding early 2000s, and what they thought worked was ridiculous, man. And I'm sure they were telling clients and whatnot to do some crazy shit and like just crashing their metabolisms and just like what they were probably doing and probably not ending up better for it. Like it's not always less is more. Some people that you need to eat a little more to feed the muscles, etc. And like, I mean, I'm out of my depth to going deep on this, but I've heard some people talk about it. And I remember at the time, my one buddy who was doing it, this is before I knew who Lane Norton was. This is like 2013-ish. And he was going on and on about it, about this guy, Lane Norton, about talking about like, you know, bodybuilding and like the nutrition aspects of it and whatnot, and saying like reverse dieting and calories in and calories out and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, man, it's a whole nother level if you want to get into it. And anyone who signs up for a bodybuilding show at the very end of last week, it is crazy, man, what these people that they shape they're in and how like weak they feel, and they hop on stage and flex the muscles and they look fantastic, but they probably feel like on death's door.
It's funny, I went through about 3 or 4 coaches during one prep, because you start doubting.
Was that the one you came third? Because that might be one of the issues.
No,
I mean, I don't want to be Captain Obvious, but
no, it's got direct correlation with how people treat powerlifting coaches as well. Like, I'm not getting strong enough, I'm not getting big enough, you know, I'm not getting shredded enough, I'm going to change coaches. And the last coach I used was Dave Palumbo, and I forked out a couple of grand. And the stuff he sent me was thorough, but it was no different. It's no different to what I'd already received. And so I thought, but it's Dave Palumbo, so I'll follow it. Whereas I was getting exactly the same thing from somebody that that was free. Actually, the first coach was free. But I thought, no, I've spent $2,000 now, and it's Dave Palumbo, so he's out there. So I'll follow this one. And I did, but I think genetically I wasn't cut out, and I didn't put enough work in, to be honest. I put enough work into the weight side of things, but the cardio, you know, you can't just sit on the treadmill and go through the motions.
Well, the thing is, so if you had no gas in the tank, it sounds like, you know, it's easy to say that now, but if you put yourself in the body you had at the time, it felt like you felt, if your calories were that low, man, look, I was dating a girl one time who was powerlifting, went to a coach for nutrition, and some of these people will stack their plate with so many flipping clients. This guy, I don't know, he was a very well-known guy on YouTube, had a big following, and he probably had way too many clients. And she would do her check-ins, and he was like pulling back the calories, pulling them back, and at some point he was going to reverse diet, and her body weight kept going down, down, down. And she told him, listen, I'm going to lift in the fit as a 57 kilo. I don't have to be 57 kilo. I routinely cut like, I'll use pounds because it's what we're used to, but I routinely cut like 6 pounds of water on my body weight. So I don't need to be 57 kilo. He's like, yeah, cool. So she's losing weight, and the strength is just plummeting. And because she's losing a lot of weight, and she went down to 57 kilo, and she would tell him the update. Here's my body weight. Here's the calories. Sounds good. Maintain. And she's like, okay. And then the body weight goes lower. He's like, sounds good. And we're like, okay, I'm 56 in point. I don't have to cut it anymore. And I'm starting to get under. And she told him like, man, my weights are going way the fuck down. Like I'm a power lifter. I'm not going on stage. And he's like, look at your strength. You talk to your powerlifting coach about your strength. I'm just getting you ready for, she's like, you know, she dropped them. And sometimes some of these coaches, even though they're huge names, I think they might take on clients, a huge base, and you're not going to get the attention. Like, it's more like I will put out tons of social media content and get a massive following and get tons of people signed up. And certain people that I know are big names, I got to treat them right. Other people are going to get the, hey, okay, sounds good, let's keep it moving. And it's like, you know, you got to be careful sometimes when you're looking for coaching. Sometimes the big name person who's expensive, you're better off to go with someone else who's like, one-on-one, I got you. You got my attention. You're actually, go ahead.
The average standard of nutrition coaching, I've never had a nutrition coach, but some of my powerlifting athletes have had, and I know a lot of people who have had nutrition coaches. And the average standard seems quite low. Like a lot of it is very, if we talk about decision trees before, a lot of it is like literally a decision tree. Like, did weight go down by more than this amount? If yes, keep things the same. If no, instead lower carbs by this amount. If out of carbs, start lowering fats instead. And like that's, and you pay $200 or more a month for that, and that's it.
Yeah.
And on that note, I'm accepting clients. If anyone promo code, if that's how easy it is, promo code KOTL. And
yeah, you want the tilapia and asparagus diet? Hit me up.
That's right. I got it.
You want someone to crash your hormones? I'm your guy.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, man, I 100% agree. I think that's there's definitely people who have a very low, and that's. I've had a couple coaches here and there, and that's essentially what was happening. What's the body weight? Okay, add 2 carbs per day, and we take it from there.
Yeah,
do whole carbs.
I feel like it's the same with powerlifting coaches, though. Every man and his fucking dog's a powerlifting coach these days. It's just not as obvious.
Yep.
Because it takes a couple of training cycles for people to realize that they're shit.
You get templated stuff that's kind of this work for a lot of people.
Sorry, I was going to say without again naming fucking names, but I actually saw an Instagram story the other day of a coach, and he said, I'm so glad that I came up with this right template. It saved me so much time doing X amount of programs a month. And I was like, dude, are you literally advertising on your story that if potential clients come to you, they're going to get the same program as the next guy, just with different numbers? That is like, yeah.
I mean, I know of some powerlifting coaches who have like upwards of 130 clients, which if you're working a 40-hour week, I mean, some people will be working more than that, but if you're working a 40-hour week, that's 20 minutes a client, assuming that you're doing no business development, assuming that you're doing no content creation, assuming, just on clients, 20 minutes a week. Like, I don't know if that's enough time to review people's videos and send them thoughtful feedback about what's going on. And like that, something about that seems a little hunky to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, it's crazy.
That's one thing that you should ask every coach is like, how many clients you got?
But they're always gonna sugarcoat it. They'll be like 100 and they've got like 4.
Or what's your churn rate? Not only how many clients do you have, but how often are you losing clients? And how long do they stay before they go? Yeah,
what's your retention? That's the 2 people that make it. There's the people that can actually do it, and there's the salesman. That's the, that's the, I learned that when I got into PT. There's 2 types who are good, and everyone else just falls by the wayside.
Well, branding and marketing's huge.
Moving on to, wanted to chat about the IPF Worlds. We've got the IPF Worlds coming up in a number of weeks now. So first thing that stands out for me is, and Rory, I don't know the story here. No New Zealand. What's going?
I can tell you the quick version of the story if you like. So IPF Worlds was originally slated to be in Belarus in September. It has since been moved to Halmstad in Sweden. And so originally we decided the NZPF, which is the New Zealand IPF affiliate, decided to not send a team to Belarus because the political situation in Belarus is terrible. If you don't know, the Belarus, war, there's a civil war in Belarus at the moment. Last time we were there was 2017. Somebody got murked by the Belarusian mob while we were there. It was overall a bad experience. I enjoyed it, but it's not a safe place to go, right? So we decided don't send a team there. When it was moved to Sweden, it was done relatively recently, and we decided to keep that decision, even though Sweden is a little bit safer than Belarus, although that area of Sweden is actually still not the safest. There's still actually like a major gang war going on there.
Wow, in Sweden.
In 2019 in Sweden, Brian, back me up here. While we were there was a gang war in Malmo, which was the city like 10 kilometers from where we were, where the weapon of choice was hand grenades. Right, not knives, not firearms. It was hand grenades, and the police had this amnesty where if they caught people with hand grenades and you handed them to the police, they wouldn't ask any questions. They would just take the hand grenades and go.
I wouldn't take a hand grenade. I
would say the city had character.
It's just character building.
The Irish coaching staff got assaulted in the park. It wasn't even like a dark, gloomy park. It was like a well-lit park. That
probably had it coming.
So Sweden, not as safe as you might assume.
We fluff it all up. He had it.
There they are.
Yeah, it was actually a woman. Well, she had it.
Probably English.
All four of them had it come. Oh, it might have been five of them actually. Yeah. So anyway, we decided that even though it had moved to a place that was a little bit safer than Belarus, we decided to maintain the decision not to send a team because we couldn't, in good conscience, say that it was safe for people to go and to first of all travel to Sweden, which is not doing well on the COVID front, and we definitely couldn't be sending coaching staff or the referee staff that we're required to send and all of those things. So we made a decision to simply not send a team at all, rather than send a team and put people in a position where they now have to decide whether their own safety and the safety of their support people is more important than potentially competing at the World Championships. And so that's why that happened.
And I can imagine too with Sweden and timing around it too, because it costs over here in New Zealand, you have to, if you go to a country like that's full of COVID, you've got to come back and do managed isolation for 2 weeks. And those spots are at the moment, because my wife looked for it because she wants to go to the UK, they're fully booked out till the end of November. You have to look daily for spots open, which is very unlikely, and they cost upwards of $5,000.
So expensive, hard to get. It's simply not a good idea for New Zealanders to be traveling at the moment. So
no, fair call.
And I will say that some countries have asked why we don't do self-isolation and we have managed isolation instead. And that's because we tried self-isolation at the beginning of the pandemic and people didn't fucking do it. So people would go home and then they'd be like, bullshit, I just need some groceries. Let me go out and get some groceries. And then there'd be an outbreak at that supermarket, So that's why there is no self-isolation.
I went to the gym, but hey, it was empty mostly.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, now they've got the army, like
the army runs the managed isolation facilities.
Yeah.
Holy sugar.
Concentration camps, anyone? Just no.
COVID free bitches,
COVID free bitches. That's a hashtag right there.
I don't know if do you guys see that meme? Like when COVID sort of first happened, and they were like saying about North Korea, and it was like COVID cases 1 at like 11:59, and then like 12:02 0, and then like 103 1. 105 0, and then just got the picture of Kim Jong-un like sitting there with his thumb up. It was so funny, man. I was like, hey, he's that COVID free.
Yeah, COVID free North Korea.
Also, another thing leading into these worlds, we were kind of talking about some people. USAPL had released, so they're not. They're still, their nominations are still up. They're not. They haven't been taken down. But everybody has been obviously talking about, and USAPL has been very vocal, updating people on the contentiousness of they're openly saying we're not WADA compliant. And we've been through it. So I'll give a brief catch up on this. But essentially, the IPF is IOC recognized and wants to continue down that path for a variety of reasons, more than just getting into the Olympics, but also a lot of nations get onboarded if you're IOC recognized. Government funding for a lot of nations, if you're IOC recognized. Canada, at one point, the government would give stipends to powerlifters. And every sport, if you are a part of not just the Olympics, but actually just IOC recognized. So in terms of growing the sport, the reason why the IPF is so many member nations, like a true world championships, is due to this recognition. Helps a lot. Being IOC recognized puts you in the World Games, which is a massive one. The World Master Games, the World University Games, these are all games that are multi-sport, like the Olympics would be. So in terms of reach, and then from there, once you become those games, adding on federations in places like Malaysia, China, whatever, it's easier and easier and easier, right? So the growth of the sport globally is the mandate of the IPF. So when people who gives a fuck about IOC recognition? We don't care about the Olympics. It's a bigger picture than that. That's really narrowing the focus. Now, here's the problem. You want to be IOC recognized, you got to do WADA. If you're going to do, so they've worked a lot of money, for lawyers and everything, jump through a lot of hoops to get to certain tier. It's a tiered system from what I understand. And if the member nation, so the USAPL is openly not going to be WADA compliant, but more than that, they're campaigning saying bluntly we won't, right? So it's oh shit. So everybody's focused, IOC WADA is going to be paying attention. So now there could be repercussions, right? If your federation it has member nations that are openly not, you could get dropped down into tier. If it's really bad, possibly lose IOC recognition. I don't know the whole process if you don't do certain things, if you don't handle your business, basically. So it's tough because it's not who's right or who's wrong. It's just they have two different visions. And so the USAPL essentially still wants to be part of the IPF, but they openly don't want to follow the be WADA compliant, which you have to be. So then it becomes, we're at a bit of a standstill here. So what's going to happen? We don't know. Can something be worked out? Some people are maybe if we get creative, but then, so we do have nominations in and, but there could be some repercussions coming down. And again, it's not like the IPF, like some people like they're terminating it like, USAPL is in good standing, but you're not really in good standing. But every press release is we're a federation in good standing, but you like, you're openly saying you're not going to be compliant. And then it'll be don't punish the lifters when it's like it's not like we have anything against your few nominations on here. It's we are not losing a tier and we're not losing association because of this. Like we can't. And all the other federations that got onboarded with this understanding, this is the mandate we're moving towards. If you don't hold the boat's course on this and it costs you because of one nation, how are you going to turn around to the other like 100 nations and be like, we lost our IOC recognition because we just didn't, because we blinked first. Like it's one of those deals where, so when they say let the lifters lift, it's not that easy. That's,
isn't WADA, accreditation or WADA, following the WADA principles for the USAPL, it's less drug testing and more randomized.
So that's not, that is actually the USAPL spin on it. And so the actual requirement is that when you do testing in accordance with the WADA standards, there's a particular standard that the drug testing must be at. And I'm going to use hand signals. Sorry for everyone who is only on audio, but I've got my hand up quite high at the moment.
It's around about his forehead.
It's around about my forehead. And the standard that the USAPL is doing testing at is sort of a little bit lower than that. Now my hand is sort of below my chin. So the USAPL spin, so that is the WADA requirement. All testing that you must do has to be at this high standard. And the USAPL spin on that, which is not necessarily true. This is like the slant the USAPL is putting on it. It is more expensive. It is 10 times more expensive is the claim that they've made. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that's the claim, to do it at the standard that you want rather than the standard that we're currently doing it at. Therefore, we will have to do 10 times less testing. Therefore, we will only test at the highest level if we follow the standard. And so of those things, only one of them is actually a requirement by WADA. A lot of the rest of it is stuff that USAPL is saying that they would have to do to be able to meet that, which is not necessarily true, but it is the claim that they're making. And so like there are other options available, and I don't know how feasible those other options are available. For example, they could increase the total amount of money that they spend on drug testing, which would mean that they don't have to reduce it by 10 times. Maybe they can reduce it by 5 times or something like that.
Yeah, because the USAPL and the IPF have that slight deviation in philosophy. The IPF is growing the sport. The USAPL is promoting drug-free sport, aren't they? So they have a more expansive drug testing regime. So what they're saying is, if we were to utilize our existing process around drug testing, which is what 20, 30, 40%, whatever it is of the athletes, we would have to utilize the WADA testing, which would raise the cost. Whereas WADA's saying and the IPF is saying no, you just need to follow the WADA principles, which is less drug testing but at a higher standard.
Yeah, so it's effectively a quality versus quantity debate. Like WADA is saying all of your testing must be at this quite high standard, and USAPL is saying we're going to do the slightly lower standard testing, but we're going to do a fuck ton of it.
Yeah, but I think the USAPL's idea is they do 10%, they drug test 10% of lifters at every single meet.
Here's another thing. So what we've seen historically in other sports, like USAPL should not be testing themselves. Like with this, when we ran into issues with other sports like Olympic weightlifting, where they were testing themselves, putting out their own suspensions, and you handle it yourself, it obviously is a conflict of interest. When you're the ones that's policing yourselves, it's a buddy system for testing. Whereas other sports have moved away from that and said, okay, like Olympic sports would be, it's WADA, and they just come in, they're a third party, unaffiliated with yourself. They don't care about the USAPL or whatever. They're the same people doing the track stars, the same people doing all these other people. And they're coming in there and they're testing for what they want to test for. And USAPL openly said, like, we don't like not having the control to say, like, we think you should be testing this guy. He just broke a record. You should be testing him. How come we can't offer you input? The flip side is WADA would be like, we're coming in with 10 tests today. If we let you tell us 5 of those 10, what if we start doing that every time we come in, you could know 5 people are clean, divert us to 5 people, and you got 5 out of 10, and there's 5 people we wouldn't have went after. We just you have to let the professionals and experts do their job, and you can't have influence. And that's where it becomes a control thing too, where, you know, you're not giving out suspensions. You're not giving out, like, you know, if 2 people get suspended, one person's really figurehead, poster boy, poster girl for your federation. You're not doling out the suspensions or whatnot. You don't have feedback. It's just whatever's going to happen to them is going to happen to them. And that's tough too to give up. So, you know, in Canada, we do roughly 33% of our budget is spent towards anti-doping. I don't think USAPL is anywhere close to that. So you can now when you go there though, you're gonna where's the money gonna come from then? It's got to come from somewhere. Well, somebody's taking a hit somewhere.
That was their initial argument, wasn't it? They turned people against it because they were like, oh, your yearly membership's going to go up from like $150 to $400 to fund this or whatever. And then that then got like all of these members like fired up on IG and being like, stuff the IPF, we don't need them, But like, where are they going to go? This is the thing. There's
the USAPL. I think what they would do. So I think I honestly think everyone's operating in good faith. I don't think the either side is morally corrupt or wrong. When I say like there's a conflict of interest, I'm not saying anyone's going to actually do something wrong or whatever. I'm just saying, optically speaking, if there is a conflict of interest, now WADA and whatever, like there's going to be repercussions towards like we're going in 2 different directions. So I honestly believe both sides are operating in good faith. And they honestly believe what they're saying. And they honestly, when they crunch the numbers, think this is the way it is. The thing, when you crunch numbers, it can go either which way, right? So having said that, if the USAPL were to leave the IPF, I don't think they join another global organization. I think they try to have a go at it on their own, and they just run the raw nats. They run a series of money meets, you know, smaller money meets in different states over there, and do that and hope, like, obviously, as soon as they leave, a new US federation's coming that's going to be affiliated with the IPF immediately. The IPF obviously sees this coming and obviously is prepping themselves for this. So as soon as one leaves, the other one comes in. Now, once the other one comes in, the first year, whatever it is, but they're going to get more and more stable and it's going to be a battle for lifters. So you will lose some lifters. I mean, some lifters want to go all the way to the worlds, right? Some lifters are like, look at it within domestically in the US, I have a certain level of people, but internationally it's even more so. I want to go all the way. And then the USAPL will also try to coax some people internationally to lift at their money meets within the US as well and be like, look, cross the line, lift with us. And then you're going to have lifters getting suspended on both sides, having to make tough decisions. And it's not great for the sport as a whole, but again, it's not like neither one is a bad guy. It's just, look, I think we entered this relationship on the same page. Now we're both moving in different directions. And, you know, we want this, you guys want that. And you almost feel like a breakup's coming. You hope not. Cause I honestly, like, obviously, you know, I hope everything gets worked out.
Six, your take on this, and guys, other guys chip in as well. How much, a couple of things, what's your feel, Six, on what you're seeing with USAPL members? What are they thinking on a whole, if they were to vote, what do you think they would say? And the second part of that, how much of this, and I'm thinking historically, is the US going fuck you to the other side of the world, telling them how to do things? Because historically, the US don't like anyone on that side of the world telling them how to do things. You know, it's gone back 200, 300, 400 or 300 years. But the first thing is, What are the members saying? So if they went out to the members and said, what do you guys think? And 80% went, hey, we want to stick with the IPF, let's do it. Do you reckon they would? And the second question is, how much is that historical US mentality around foreign intervention?
So for the first part of the question, it's difficult to say because I can tell you right now, I have noticed in some social media is not a good gauge. There is what is developed in a lot of different issues, a silent majority where you're like, fuck it, I'm just not going to say my opinion because it's not going to be popular right now. That happens a lot. I've noticed on social media. If you put up polls and you're like, oh, well, that poll didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. So I'm not sure. I know if you were to hop in the comments, the main person posting about this is the USAPL. So if you hop in the USAPL's comment section, you're going to get fucking bullied badly. So, and they are by far the ones, like the IPF is not posting at all. And not very many people like King and Lists. I'm trying not to get too politically in on it. Even like when I talk, I'm like, look, I think both parties are operating, in good faith, and I hope it gets worked out. And I honestly do believe that. But the biggest by far vocal party is the USAPL. You're not going there and talking to, some people do, but not many people are entering the comment section debating and trying to get in on a debate or bring it like, show me your numbers. How did you get to those numbers or whatever the heck? Or people, it's just, none of that discussion is happening. So it's difficult for me to actually tell you, because if I'm telling you the biggest vibe on it is from the USAPL page, that's a very big red herring in terms of like, where I'm trying to read this. I honestly believe a lot of people are going to sit back and not say too much. And look at, why would you say too much if literally, like, I know some people, like, if you say too much in public right now, they might not leave. And if you're vocal against, the heads of the USAPL and you're talking out against them and they don't leave, and you're like, it's problematic, man. It's going to be what you might not put your head out like that. But if it actually parts and splits, it's like if you're at work and somebody finally quits and he was your boss, you're going to start talking shit afterwards, but you don't talk shit before. So I don't know. It's very difficult. It's a very, very difficult thing to say. Like, if they split, how many people would be like, I got news for you. I want to do IPF Worlds. I want to do Sheffield SPD Invitational with $300,000 in prize money US and all the rest of it. Like, I want, and I'll still have USA across the chest, it'll be US affiliation. I don't know. Some people might, or some people won't. It's difficult for me to say on that. That's what I'll say. I'm going to let Rory jump in on that as well, because he's got his finger on the pulse on this as well. So then I'll double back on your next question. But Rory, how do you feel about it?
My vibe is that if you took a vote across all USAPL members, it would swing towards leaving the IPF. But I don't know if taking a vote is like in the USAPL's own best interests. Like, a lot of people will vote in a self-interested way, right? And which is fair. Like, people probably should vote in a self-interested way. But their source of information is the USAPL Instagram page. And I hate that Instagram is the source of information for a lot of these things, right? Like,
Rory, is it true that Donald Trump Jr. is running that Instagram page?
I guarantee it, and it's backed up by Hillary Clinton's email server. So, but if that Instagram page is the source of truth for a lot of people, then what they'll be reading is the information that they have is only the USAPL's spin on the information, which is not to say that information is wrong, but it's written with the perspective of the USAPL, and because the IPF doesn't make public statements in the same way that the USAPL does. Like, the USAPL does this thing very often where they put out these public statements for everybody to read. This is what is happening from our perspective. I mean, the IPF just doesn't do that, right? Like, they, for whatever reason, they've decided that's not an approach that they want to take. And so I think if you went and took everyone's vote, a lot of people would say, I don't want to pay more fees. I like drug testing, and you're telling me that there will be less drug testing if we do this, and it'll cost more. Like, why would I do that? That's a lose-lose. Oh, and I'm never going to go to IPF Worlds because I'm not Taylor Atwood. So, like, that seems like and so, like, that's what I think would happen if you simply took a poll across all of the members of the USAPL. And so I hope that they don't do that, because I think that would be a loss for powerlifting, and I think it would be a loss for the USAPL, even if they don't see it yet.
I agree.
I saw a thing this morning. It's I just went and checked it before. He's actually taken it off his story, so I don't know if he wasn't supposed to post it. But there was again, not mentioning that, it was someone who we've talked about just previously, quite a prolific USA powerlifting coach. But he had it on his story, and it was an excerpt of what the proposal was for the stage it's up to at the moment, and the IPF was basically fining the USAPL like 10,000 euros.
I actually have the notice of charge open on my other monitor.
Oh, here we go.
Hey,
Okay.
this guy. Hey, we'll get him back
He's
on.
the best of the best,
All right,
gentlemen.
so now it's on Rory that he's released confidential information, not me. Okay, so just
this information is publicly available. So
it was.
So there's a thing called a DHP, and I forget what that stands for, but it's supposed to be a committee of people who decide whether a federation is in breach of their drug testing requirements or not.
100%.
For one reason or another, the IPF has decided that committee consists of one person at the moment, and that seems like an odd decision to me, but I don't know very much about that. So I'm going to leave that as it is. And what they're suggesting is a 10,000 euro fine. So that's about 20,000 New Zealand dollars. An exclusion from all IPF events for 12 months, and a stand down from all IPF commitments for the same length of time. That doesn't mean that this is exactly what's going to happen if this DHP, this single person, decides that the USAPL is in breach, right? So what the USAPL is saying, this is what we want to happen. And then that person gets to decide, first of all, is the USAPL in breach? If they are, then there will be consequences. The consequences might look something like this. And then probably the USAPL will argue that, and that'll go to the International Court of Arbitration and Sport in gosh, where is that? Is that Luxembourg, Ryan?
Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry. So,
Luxembourg. We're going to go with that. Somebody can fact check that later, I guess. And if they're found to not be in breach of those requirements, then things will continue as normal. And we don't know when that's going to happen, right? Like presumably it takes a while to convene all of the information which is required. And so this is probably not going to be like tomorrow, like 8 a.m. Monday, Luxembourg time or whatever. This is just going to go ahead. It's going to be a process over a number of weeks. And it actually, I find it really amusing that people are surprised by this. So the IPF has been a wider signatory since, I haven't been able to find the exact date, but somewhere between 2010 and 2012.
Yeah.
And the USAPL has been a member of the IPF since like the late 90s or something, like 1998, something like that. So it's been at least 8 years since everyone knew you have to comply to these standards. And the IPF repeatedly, like it comes up about every 2 years, the IPF says, USAPL, you're not complying to the standards, please comply to the standards. And the USAPL goes, and then doesn't do anything. And so now the IPF is finally going, okay, actually at this point, you not complying is going to cost us something that we care very deeply about, IOC recognition. We're being really serious. You need to actually comply now. And here's the thing that says comply or pay us $20,000. And so people are like, oh no, bad guy IPF, but like this is not new. Like this has been coming for like almost a decade at this point. Like I think it's really disingenuous that the USAPL keeps saying we don't have to comply to WADA standards because we are not a WADA signatory. No, you're fucking not. But you're a member of the IPF, and the IPF is a WADA signatory. So if you want to remain a member of the IPF, like you have to comply, right? Like you don't get to pick and choose which rules apply to you. You can't just go like, you know what, actually, we don't feel like following the rules that everyone else follows because we're American, which is kind of what you're saying. So yeah, frustrating.
I think, so this kind of leads into the second question there. I honestly think I do think they believe, they have their belief system, and I think they are operating in good faith. I think some of the way they're spinning it is not to be necessarily deceiving but automatically everybody does this. You're going to spit it to your side, right? So they're telling, they want to, if a split is coming, you want as many people as possible to come with you. So you'll say we're looking out for our lifters, just let our lifters lift. Don't punish our lifters by not letting them. On the flip side, the IPF would be like, man, if this is going to come, it was going to come one of the years. So one of the year's nominations, we're going to get the shaft on this. This is a long time coming, so to speak. Everyone sees it coming. what do you want us to do? Like, some lifters are at one of these years, you're going to send a team and they're not going to be able to lift because of this. We all see it coming. So it's not necessarily like the IPF's like, well, we don't give a shit about the lifters. It's like, or we want to punish them. It's more, what are we supposed to do? We're going to lose. We're going to lose what we're striving for in terms of the IOC recognition, everything that goes with it. We cannot. It looks like an inevitable situation coming. I don't think like the US is doing it just to do it. I don't think they're doing it just for bravado or to go against the grain. I think they honestly believe in this. You know, I think they honestly believe in what they're doing is the right decision for them. Kind of like Rory was saying, we're like, you know, you should always go vote in the way it's the right decision for you. I think they honestly believe that, right? That's why they're doing it. I just, you know, it doesn't look like their directions align. You know, I don't think I think they're both operating in good faith. They're both looking out for the USAPL has so many lifters that they think this is what's best for them. There's like, we have to think about the lifters at the local level, and we don't see it possible to test at the local level under WADA. I don't know. Maybe it isn't, man. Maybe they're 100% right. You know, Canada does it, but fuck it. Maybe it's different. Doesn't scale the same. I don't know. They're putting out a lot of claims out there. Nobody's going against those claims, but there's so many sports under WADA and the USDA that it's like USADA that it's like, how is this not possible that USADA and WADA can't govern and drug test for you when they do all of these Olympic sports all over the world, but they can't handle you? Hard for me to think, but I'm not saying they're lying. I just, maybe I think they probably honestly believe that, but anyways, put a pin in that for one sec. On the flip side, I think the IPF is legitimately saying we have all of these nations onboarded getting government funding, and we're a member of all these different games, the World Games, University Games, and all the rest of it. We can't lose this because you don't want to. We can't give that up. All of the other 100 members plus are going to look at us and be like, really? One nation said no, and you... like that was like that, because we're going to lose a lot on our end here. Our government pays for our head coaches to go and pays for our team to go and pay. Like, this is all out the window now because we lost a tier in the IOC because you didn't take action here. So both are probably operating, you know, with bigger picture in mind. And the thing is, the IPF is, so the USAPL is stating these things to their people with their viewpoint, which they're allowed to do. And I think they are doing it in good faith, even if it's like obviously to their side, but everyone's going to. But the IPF is not. And there's a reason why they're not, though. I don't think they want to get dragged into a social media war. I don't think they want to go back and forth with claims and debate it out on social media posts. And I'm surprised some people don't know, like there is other nations involved looking at this. Like, we've had podcasts with people come on saying we get government funding, we get this, we get that. And like, you know, we're onboarding all these nations. We're part of all these games and all these different committees. Like, this is going to be a problem for like a lot. Some people are just like, well, we'll never be part of the Olympics. It's stupid. So who cares? It's way bigger than that. I promise you.
It's bigger. Yeah. I think, personally, I think philosophically there's a misalignment there. I think philosophically, the USAPL will not back down and can't back down, because they do truly believe in drug-free sport. So they will never renege on that promise to the lifters. I think that was part of their creation, was their promise to lifters that we would push for drug-free sport. So they won't back down on that. I also think they're capitalizing on that inherent US or American belief system around America first, which has been prevalent through the ages, but it's been especially prevalent in the last 2 or 3 years, 4 years. America first, and politically it was a minefield, wasn't it? Which Donald Trump capitalized on with, fuck the UN, fuck the World Health Organization, and now it's fuck the IPF. And I think there's a undercurrent of wanting to break that dominance that powerlifting headquarters are typically in Europe, aren't they? I think the bulk of many federations, the biggest federations, are all headquartered in Europe. Am I right on that one?
Head offices in Luxembourg, and many
IPF?
of the big affiliates are in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, the IPL, is that US?
Oh, are you talking about different feds as well?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the IPF. Oh, yeah, the headquarters. Yeah, the IPF dominance is European, but I think powerlifting as a whole it dominates in Europe, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially Eastern Europe, and like the western edge of Russia.
So maybe this is a political move, perhaps for USAPL as well, to create a dominant force based in the US.
Well, I mean, look at if they want to break off and run things entirely how they want to run things, and however the size, if it goes from 20,000 lifters to 10,000, but they're comfortable with it, and now all the way they want to drug test, the way they want to structure it is okay, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all, right? Like if that's the way they want to go. I think it's just we're getting into a crunch time situation where this is 10 years coming, like Rory's saying, or roughly somewhere around there, where it's like, this is going to come to a head where if there is no resolution to be made that you can be water compliant and stay with us, we got to part ways, pat each other in the back and be like, no hard feelings. You do your thing, we do our thing. The only tough part is the new USAPL, the new US Fed that will be IPF affiliated will pop up immediately. And there will be a battle for lifters here and there. Certain states, will go to the new Fed, certain state chairmen who kept their mouths shut for certain times, like this is just the way it is. And I'm not saying particular, but I'm sure there's certain people who always had a quiet grudge here or whatever. And that's when it could get ugly. It could, like the problem when you're big is that there's a lot of people involved, a lot of lifters involved, a lot of money involved, and people will be like, okay, here's our shot. And then it'll become the battle for lifters, the battle for the stars, who gets the better deals and who gets what. And I just hope it doesn't never get like ugly or whatever, man. I don't like division. I hope it gets worked out. Like I like the US Rod Nats and I like there's a lot of people, man. And look at, man, if they split, it is what it is. I'm not in the US. So I'll watch both, man. I can watch both Nats. I could still have both lifters on the podcast. I could still, whatever. All life goes on. It's fine. It doesn't mean, but I would just hope, you hope for the best. I think we're stronger together. I keep saying it. We're stronger together in terms of like a community as a whole. If you're in the tested and you're all under one umbrella, it will be a more global sense. And, the more talent pool, meaning we'll have a huge clash at Worlds because the talent pool's so deep. Splitting the division of talent is never a good idea for any sport. It gets tougher to have great matchups. You don't want shallow talent pools where it's not head to head. You have to use a formula for a good competition. I want to see 10 guys in the same weight class, 10 women in the same weight class, battle it out in every weight class. And that's amazing. That's a showdown. That's the Olympics. I don't want to see, okay, we got 35 people, let's use a formula all together and we're all using our calculator to see how the race is going. That's not the same as, that's why I don't want to see the division. Rory, you look like you're going to say something.
I'm just imagine if they did the 10K race like that and Mo Farah and they do like a time trial and then they, everyone just has to run their own.
Exactly.
They're like really late to watch, right?
He automatically loses points for tripping over. They're like, nah, Nick, no, you get it's a red mark. That's it.
You get a 10-second penalty for tripping.
Sorry, you were 42 and the other second place was 38. Sorry, no, but 38-year-old wins. Sorry, based on age.
Right. Yeah, exactly, man.
Measure the 100-meter sprint and everyone gets to the end and there's a pause where everyone gets out the calculators and then there's a 5-second pause and then, okay, the winner is 5th place. Yay!
Yeah, but it ends up like that sometimes though, about 8 years later.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. But brother, I saw a couple memes I've talked about before, how they're like, I can't wait to watch the Olympics and find out who won weightlifting in 8 years. Because we have a Canadian. We have a Canadian who was the first Canadian to win an Olympic gold medal, and she found out 8 years later. And she got no parade. She got no sponsorship. She got no all over the media. She got none of that. Whereas now we just had a Canadian win the gold medal and she's in all of the social media reposts. She's in all the newspaper, like every single newspaper here. If you go on their web pages, it's on there. It's actually in the newspapers and stuff. And it's huge. She will be on all the podcasts and be able to capitalize on it and be if you win and you're like Oscar De La Hoya was the golden boy when he won the Olympics, and it was massive. When he turned pro as a boxer, it was golden boy. Now he's golden boy promotions. Like it's a sports moment. I was saying in the chat with Rory, actually was in it, how in Canada, 1996 Olympic Games, I remember Canada stood still and watched Donovan Bailey race. It was huge. Everybody knew when Donovan Bailey was racing. Everybody was silent. All of us at school, like, talked about it with our teachers, everything. Okay, this Saturday, kids. And we all talked about it. We had it was massive, and everybody stopped and watched. And I will never forget watching Donovan Bailey race the 100-meter dash, which makes you the fastest human in the world, and win. And it was like it was a sports moment. And you can't replicate that 8 years later and be, oh yeah, by the way, remember back then when you saw Donovan coming fourth, he actually ended up after the fact being first, even though you watched him and it's gone. The moment's gone. There's now Donovan Bailey gets paid like a crazy money to show up to people's universities, businesses, whatever. Just engagements.
I think our shot putters, Valerie Adams had to pick up her medal from the airport. So she came in second, and
she collected it in the McDonald's at the airport, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not quite the same. Not quite.
Was it like in her Happy Meal? What are you talking about? What's going on here?
The people went and met her at the McDonald's at the airport and said, "Oh," they called her and said, "Oh, actually, yeah, by the way, you've won. Where are you?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm getting some food at the airport." And they're like, "Oh, we'll come to you." So she's like in, sitting down at McDonald's, and they're like, put the medal on her and stuff, and like all the kids will be in the playground, like, what's going on?
Oh, that's amazing. And then the guy turns around and orders some fries and some McNuggets.
Yeah, exactly.
Get this lady free Big Macs.
I think she got free McDonald's that day. Come on, free McDonald's.
Imagine the guy turns around and goes, as a matter of fact, you know what? Anything you want on me.
That 20 pack of nuggets, that 20 pack of nuggets, an extra sweet and sour. Yeah, get them.
That's right.
But it sounds like weightlifting's on its way out anyway, so maybe that's a slot for powerlifting to come on in, no?
Dude, they're not going to take weightlifting out and put in powerlifting. We're better, less good looking.
This is the conversation where people are like, I have no idea if powerlifting's leaving or whatever, but if they left, do they want a barbell sport? Because if they do, that's us, baby. But if they don't, I don't know. I have no idea.
What if they're like, yeah, okay, we'll take a barbell sport, and then it's like the WPO. And then it's all on, baby. It's fucking flamethrowers, it's flame beanies, flame shirts.
Can you imagine? We'd be like, what the fuck? All these years we've been working this hard. They're like, yeah, we're going multi-gear.
Those guys have fucking beanies and flannel shirts and flamethrowers and ring girls. We're taking them. That's it. Sorry.
Can you imagine? The world would be insane if that happened. As a... I like boxing and MMA. There's a couple, like Muay Thai kickboxing is going in, and so is Sambo is going in the Olympics. Yeah, awesome. Man, that was pretty cool to see.
And maybe I should go back to Muay Thai. It might be my chance to go to the Olympics.
That's it, buddy. And start a podcast.
Is that where they kind of they sway from side to side? Is that the one?
I think that might be capoeira.
Yeah, that's capoeira, my man. Yeah, no, Muay Thai is knees, elbows, kicks, punches. It's brutal. It's
savage.
It's really rough. They're the fight sports. I mean, MMA is not in it, but I'm sure the UFC, in terms of our digestion and how we're able to digest this kind of thing and be okay with it. I think before, previously, to think about people getting kneed in the face and elbowed in the face, and that's the Olympics. They would be like, no, that's not Olympic nature. Whereas now, with social media and the UFC and MMA being crazy uber popular, some of the biggest name in sport, and with social media, we take it in highlights so often, we're a little desensitized to it. So now, if it's a lot easier for us, like Muay Thai kickboxing, could we come in? And they're like, man, we see people get knocked out all the time now.
Yeah,
that's nothing.
Give us some blood. Yeah,
give us some blood.
The crowd
red equals green.
Yeah.
yeah.
Blood is gold. Yeah.
That's right. Blood is
gold. Speaking of weightlifting, Rory, what's your take on Laurel Hubbard?
Oh boy, here we go.
Okay. I've got a nuanced opinion on this.
Jesus Christ, Greg. You're gonna get us all canceled, bro.
I gotta say, okay, we've already got Hulk Hogan after us. We've got a Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach after us.
Hey, Hulk's only got himself to blame. You bastard, you stupid idiot.
That's right, Hulk. It is.
I'm sorry, brother. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay, so there's two separate things that are going on here, and people conflate them quite often. And I think the conflation is intellectually lazy, right? So the real question that's happening here is, should Laurel Hubbard, who is, if you don't know, she's a transgender athlete who's competing for New Zealand at the weightlifting at the Olympics this year. So should Laurel Hubbard be allowed to compete at the Olympics as a woman? And a lot of people are conflating that with the question of, does a transgender athlete, particularly a male to female, like a transitioned athlete, have an advantage over someone who was born a woman already? And people are conflating that, and they're answering the second question and going, yeah, therefore I've proved that this should not be true, even though like they haven't actually answered the original question. So does a transgender athlete have an advantage over a cisgendered athlete? Like, almost certainly. However, the magnitude of that advantage is small, and it's unclear exactly how big it is. And the evidence that I've seen that was published by the IOC in their report in 2004, when they first came out with the guidelines for transgender athletes, was that the difference between an athlete who transitioned from male to female and an athlete who was born as a woman and was just unlucky on the genetics department is actually way smaller than you would think. And so do they have an advantage? Probably. How big is that advantage? Probably very small. Like, you know, Michael Phelps is going to be a freak regardless, because he's got his like weird double jointed ankles, right? And like a woman born with weird double jointed ankles is still going to be a better swimmer than me if I transitioned to being a woman and decided to compete in swimming, right? So like the magnitude of that difference is relatively small. Transgender people make up about 0.5% of the total population. Every year, there's every time there's an Olympics, there's about 2,000 athletes who go. And there has been 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016, 2021. There's been 5 Olympics since they first came out with the guidance saying this is how, if you're a transgender athlete, this is how you compete at the Olympics. So there's been about 10,000 athletes go to the Olympics over that time. And this is the first time that a transgender athlete has even qualified to go to the Olympics. And so I would imagine like that if you have a significant advantage competing as a transgender athlete, that we would see much higher rates of that in the Olympics, and we don't. And Laurel Hubbard has met every standard laid out by the IOC to compete at the Olympics as a transgender athlete. Whether you think those are fair or not, they are, like, all rules in sport are arbitrary, right? Like in the drug tested side of powerlifting, we say caffeine is okay, but amphetamines are not okay, even though caffeine is probably more performance enhancing than amphetamines, right? Like it's very arbitrary. And all of us, when we join the sport, we agree to follow those arbitrary rules. And so the IOC is saying, these are the arbitrary rules for this particular thing. You know, you have to transition more than 3 years ago. Your test levels need to be in this range. You need to, you know, all of these other things. And Laurel Hubbard has met all of those things. And if you want to turn around and say, look, the arbitrary rules that we've set out are not fair, that's cool. You should go and try and change those arbitrary rules. You shouldn't say, hey, actually, we think like you specifically should be excluded for some like for whatever fucking reason, right? I actually think it's very similar to the was she a sprinter, athletics, who was banned from competing at the Olympics this year for the weed violation. Are the weed rules arbitrary and probably racist? Yes. However, every other rule in sport is also arbitrary. And so if you think that that rule is arbitrary and racist, you should attempt to change that rule. Like that person knew the rules, they broke them, and they were excluded as a result of breaking the rules. You can't then go and say after the fact, hey, actually that rule is racist, maybe we should let that person compete anyway. What you should do is go and say, okay, now we have to go and change that rule so that people don't get unfairly excluded again in the future. That was a couple of minutes.
No, that's the one, because it's like people will go after her versus
right. Whereas she has done nothing wrong.
She's done nothing wrong. Yeah, she's following the rules.
It's
if you think that is unfair, which you might, I don't think it's unfair. But if you think it's unfair, the thing you should go after is the IOC rules that say 100%. This is how you compete as a transgender athlete, not Laurel Hubbard specifically.
It's like it's honestly in powerlifting, it's like sumo deadlifters and like big arch bench presses. Like people are like, they quite a bit of bitch and moan about it, but it's within the rules.
Yeah,
right. And if you don't like that rule, go to the IPF General Assembly or whatever the equivalent is for your federation and convince everybody there that it's unfair, and then that rule will be changed.
Yeah. It's like with the sumo argument there. People are quite happy when they're allowed to do it and they're okay at it. But then some small 15-year-old Russian girl whose shoulders can touch her buttocks, and the bar comes down 3 millimeters. That's when it's not okay. But it's the same. It's the same rule. But she was just more genetically gifted, and you know, obviously more advantaged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And like, and that person is way more advantaged than a male who has now transitioned to being a woman and is attempting to bench press at 57 kilos and can't arch like that, right? And so,
yeah.
Your stats you pulled out of nowhere, I was like, holy shit, Roy came ready for this one.
He's got those notes on his other screen.
My man comes prepared, man.
No, you know what? I cheated. It's on Rory's Facebook page. Big long post. I started reading it and it was TLDR. It was just too, and I thought, no, I'll bring it up on the podcast.
You know what that means? Are you up with the acronyms?
Yeah, too long didn't read.
Okay, good. No, just checking. You're
Dog,
still young at heart, bro. You're still young at heart.
I'm 44. Okay. You know. I often get TLDR from my kids. TLDR. Yep.
I honestly, God, pause for a second. Like, I don't know if I know that acronym. I'm gonna let Greg bite the bullet if he can get it. My man came through. My man hit it out the park.
6'6". What do you think, man? Transgender athletes.
Yeah, I mean, everything Rory said sounded pretty.
Yeah.
You know, one of the biggest things that Rory said that stuck out to me was when he's like, and I didn't know a lot of this stuff. Like I haven't researched, like really looked into it, probably because it's not something that you see all the time, right? So when Rory said, look, this has actually been in place for 5 years.
5 Olympics.
Or 5 Olympics.
2004.
Yeah.
That's what you're right. Yeah, sorry. We haven't seen this like the first time it's really been a major issue. If there's been other sports, I don't know. But so it isn't this sport changing event that maybe we think, oh, here it comes. Like, women will get pushed out of sports. Like people who are like transition will push out. People who were born that way and they'll become like that's it. If we have 4 to 5 Olympics and this is like the first major issue, it isn't. It's not going to happen like that. It's more possibly fear mongering, and maybe we're blowing this out of proportion with that kind of views. I haven't super looked into it because it hasn't been an issue across many sports, right? It hasn't been something that we've seen. Well,
it's not something I think we've seen in weightlifting. And the thing with Laurel is that she's had what 30 something of years, 35 years of being a man and having the effects of testosterone on her body and applying that onto the platform in terms of weightlifting. And does that effect stay or have a residual effect even if she doesn't necessarily compete for 3 or 4 years? So do you have the advantage of 10, 15, whatever the period of time was, as a competitive weightlifter, as a male? Do you have that advantage when you then become a female, despite following all the rules? And I think the other question is around the levels of testosterone as well, which is what I think 10 nanomoles per liter of blood. So that's quite, from my research, it's quite high. Like I think the average woman is way less, like 1, 2, 3, I think 2.5 maybe tops. So 10 is effectively, I think, a male with low testosterone. Jackson.
Hang on, mate. Who's still lifting here? Who's still in decent shape? Hang on. No, but that 10 millimole is actually within the reference range for males.
Yes.
The male reference range has come all the way down in the last 20 years. The lowest
so low testosterone is like 8 or something. Yeah, so
it's under 8.
So I can answer the first one of those questions reasonably well. So the answer is that yes, that has a permanent effect on your physiology, and we can see that in people who use exogenous hormones, and the androgen receptor density, particularly in the muscles of your upper body, the traps and the delts in particular, increases as a result of exposure to exogenous testosterone, and that's effectively what is happening to someone like Laurel Hubbard, right? Up until whatever age she had. For a woman, super physiologically high doses of testosterone, and therefore she has a higher androgen receptor density in those muscles in the same way as if she'd been using exogenous hormones. So the answer to that question is like, yes, it is definitely physiologically detectable that is true. The question is, does that physiological difference translate into a difference on the platform? And that question is much harder to answer.
Yeah. Well,
Second question, I can't answer.
No, it's one of those things. Like, I mean, so then what are your guys' thoughts on someone going untested powerlifting to then going back to tested?
I mean, that happened recently, right? Was it Lynn Bailey was was she untested bodybuilding for a long time?
She was a physique Olympia champion,
Physique Olympia champion, and then she took a 3 years of downtime, and then she transitioned into the USAPL as a tested athlete after whatever the amount of time was. And she fucking tanked, right? Like she did really badly.
But she still did better than what she would have done if she'd done it naturally.
But we don't know how much better. Like did she do better? Probably. But because we don't have like a reference point, it's hard to say, like, was her best total now 5 kilos better than it would have been if she hadn't done that? Was it 50 kilos better than the best total? We can't answer that question without like good data on these things. And I don't think we have good data on that at the moment.
No, 100% not. I think for those sorts of things, it's something that, like, so we say about like someone who's genetically gifted for a sport, you know, and so like say someone who's really tall is good at basketball, like Michael Phelps and his feet, really good at swimming. Should we exclude them because they're just going to fucking destroy everyone? Probably not, because he didn't have control over that portion of his genetic, that advantage that he has. He didn't pick it. He didn't choose it. Whereas someone who then transitions, or someone who goes from untested to tested, has chosen to do that.
I don't know if we can put transitioning and moving from untested to tested in the same bucket there. Like people don't choose to have dysphoria, right?
No,
like but that's a medical condition which is treated with transitioning. Similarly, like you could say other things, right? Like was it Tiger Woods and his like eye condition that he got treated with laser eye surgery, and now his vision's like 3 times better than anyone else on the planet. Like,
is that what
is that true?
That is true. And they've now banned that surgery. But he is like grandfathered in, and he doesn't have to like have it undone or anything.
Wow.
Oh shit.
Damn, where do I get that from?
I don't know. I'd quite like that.
So he could see the hole like from the tee, and like I remember hearing about that, and I was like, that is ludicrous. And people were saying that they had to get rid of him, but there was, like you say, there was no rule. I suppose that's the thing. It comes down to the governing bodies versus the individuals. That's the hard part that most people can't get their head around.
Yeah, like if I was to get my attachments all moved around, so I had better leverages when powerlifting, am I cheating?
It is not against the rules to do that, and I would say that is not cheating. I would say it's probably not the advantage that we might hope it would be, because the amount of time you have to take out after training.
Right now, it won't work. Yeah, but give 10, 15 years, who knows? With advances in medical science.
Well, it's the same thing as if you think about, like, we've seen I forget the guy's name from South Africa who ran with
Pistorius.
Oscar Pistorius.
Yeah.
And people started saying, like, in the future, if people how good could these artificial legs get, and could it actually be, it's kind of like AI where it gets better and better, and eventually AI beats the chess masters. Could artificial legs eventually be way better than our legs?
If you want to amputate your legs so that you can run 100 meters faster, you go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Listen to me. I saw, if I can be like Will Smith in is it I Am Legend or iRobot? If I can be Will Smith in iRobot, I'm telling you what, I'm going to become a 6'2" fucking dime piece. All right. And then you talk to me. I actually would. Fuck it. But it depends on, like, eventually.
We're going to hook you up some melanin. Okay.
Dog, if I look like Will Smith in his prime. But no, but like down the road, who knows? Who knows what science does? I mean,
speaking of, is that guy still in jail?
Pistorius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he got out. Didn't he? Didn't he
Wait,
get
he
out
got
for
out?
some weird? Look that up. I thought some weird loophole. I swear to God, he got away with it. I don't know. You know what? Fact check this, because
I'm looking that up right now.
Thank you, kind sir. Because I thought.
Oh my God, he only spent a year in jail.
That's right. Wow. That's right. 1 year.
What?
For murder. What the?
That's what the Olympics does for you, baby. You get a hall pass for murder.
He was only given 5 years and then got out after 1 year. Wow, that is
ludicrous.
This is
fucking
wild.
Crazy.
That is okay. Well, there you go, 6. So you get your legs amputated, you can get away
now
with
who's laughing
and win a gold.
That's right. Now who's laughing? I'm doing it. No, yeah, it is. I remember watching him running and seeing the artificial legs and how fucking fast he was moving. And I remember looking to the guy beside me, my buddy, and he was like, "This is unbelievable, man. This has got to be a footnote in history where, like, previous generations, like if you think about the 50s, what artificial legs and limbs would be like, and if you think now what they would be like, and Oscar Pistorius was still like almost a decade back. So we're a decade is huge for technology. you think about, in 20 years, what some artificial limbs could be like. They won't look like Oscar Pistorius.
Well,
it might start looking normal.
We
Like,
had
you couldn't tell.
we had Russell Kern on, being a stem cell therapist.
Oh, stem cell, yeah.
And I mean, the way that that's coming along, like leaps and bounds, how is that going to be policed in 10
How
years'
good
time?
is it? Tell me about it, because I know I've heard like small stuff, snippets here and there, but I don't know like just how game changing is this.
Well, I mean, if you get the right stems, I can't remember what he called them, but basically the stem cells that
Precursors, something.
that aren't from like a specific place, they can turn into any cell in your body.
Undifferentiated stem cells? No, that's not it.
Origin stem cells? No, something like that. But they can obviously you can tell I'm not Dr. Kern, but don't know if you'd noticed. But they can turn into any cell in your body, so like
didn't he say that if we took stem cells out of like, Andre Milanchev or Ed Cohen, for example, that we could insert those into the applicable muscle groups and tendons, for example, and some of that effect of that donor would transfer? Did he say that?
No.
I'll have to go back to the podcast.
Greg, because you're making things up, my man.
That's what I was thinking.
Greg's dreaming that he could get like some Ed Cohen like back cells and then get them injected into his lats. Like...
Or I'm going to be Will Smith again. Here we go.
No, so I think the main thing with them is that they can get them from like placenta or from bone marrow, and then they can then become any cell in your body. So like you can use it to there's people who have gone to say people do it in South America. And they put them like, say you've like ruptured your bicep or something, like you can come back in like weeks versus,
that's amazing.
Or like you've got a janky shoulder and you got no idea what it is. They put some stem cells in there, and it becomes as all the old cells die, they become new healthy cells, and bang, you're off.
I get something in my spine.
This is the thing. This is the thing. You can make them they can become muscle cells, bone cells, red blood cells,
Tendons,
white blood cells,
ligaments,
brain cells.
Basically rebuild the whole body. Yeah.
Like
we can make it better. $6 million,
man.
$6 million. Yeah.
I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
I was going to let you keep going, my man.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to take into account inflation now, because that was a while ago now. So that's 6 billion. 6 billion, baby.
But yeah, man, it's interesting. Like in 50 years, like the amount, like our human life expectancy is growing greatly all the time. But with this, if you think about it, damaged cells, there's no reason at all. Like we could just keep regenerating, and when cells get old and start dying off, and then cancers are more likely, et cetera. And like obviously
the thing with that is that then the stem cells then can be taken by the cancer and then reproduced.
Oh, so the cancer can.
That's what cancer is. Cancer is just your cells mutating into something malignant, really. So, like, if the stem cells then get uptaken by the cancer, then you've just helped the cancer out.
And that's the okay. Well,
yeah.
Ryan, this is what those fasting zealots talk about when they talk about increasing autophagy. Like autophagy is the process of breaking down cells which are like doing things they're not supposed to do, which is basically what cancer is. And so people who fast all the time and they talk about how fasting like makes you live forever and things like that, what they're talking about is the breakdown of like the autophagy of cells that are doing that. So you've probably heard people talk about that before.
Yeah, So are they saying it actually decreases the likelihood of cancer, the pro-fasters?
Yes, that's exactly what they're saying.
Is there science behind that?
No.
There's science that it increases autophagy, but there's no evidence that it does it in a meaningful way. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, it is interesting though with the stem cells. And look, this is right now. In 20 years, things will be a whole lot different.
Yeah. And then like, how do you differentiate it? How do you test for it? You can't, because they become your cells. Well,
you might just have to allow it though, right? It might just become a point of look at it, because that's like straight on. If it becomes, if this becomes more readily available and works like we want it to, everybody should be doing it just for like as a procedure. It'll prolong your life huge in a quality of life. you know, at the end, when you see people so old and feeble at the end, it doesn't have to be that way. Of course, we'll run into a problem. People eventually got to die, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's going to live forever.
Population-wise.
Yeah.
We got to stop having kids, man. It is what it is. If you're here, you're here. And you're here at the party.
Growth hormone. Yeah, these clinics are going to pop up anytime soon now. We've got to get on the ground floor, boys.
It is interesting.
It is
interesting. Yeah, like we're gonna do it ourselves.
Yeah, like you can obviously tell we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I go promo code KOTL 10.
Forever KOTL.
Yeah, that's the next. So there is a lot of UFC fighters. I think Joe Rogan had like Mel Gibson on, and he was talking about his dad was like 90 years old in a wheelchair, started doing stem cells, and now was like walking around and like he's truly rejuvenated. And a lot of UFC fighters now go to these stem cell research places and get fixed up and swear by it, but it's still relatively new. And again, whenever anything's relatively new, kind of like you were saying, Jackson, where you don't know, right? It could be like everything's good until it's not. All of a sudden, cancer spread like crazy.
New and
like,
unregulated.
Thank you for the food.
Unregulated, I would say as well. I don't think these stem cell facilities are anywhere.
No, it's in some van in fucking Tijuana.
I think one of them I think was Panama, and like in certain countries. They haven't fully done all the research, so they're uncomfortable with it, but it's going to come. Like, it's just a matter of time.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And
so
then
you're saying that I get a tropical holiday and my back gets fixed at the same time?
That's
like,
it.
Sure,
That's it, buddy.
Total win.
Nice.
It's like going to
Start that
Thailand.
GoFundMe.
It's like going to Thailand for a holiday and getting some new tits, mate. It's exactly the same thing.
Dude, this stem cell research also, by the way, is fucking expensive, I think, no?
Oh,
is it not?
Yeah,
is it not? We're talking like $50K or something US?
That's why you need Mel Gibson as a son. That probably helps.
Well, that wouldn't be bad. Nice. So, yeah, Rory, there you go. Just get a good-looking son and get him in acting.
You have to find someone who can donate you stem cells from like their bone marrow, or you have to have some like lady who's just given birth, let you like use her placenta or something, you know, like.
So that's probably what part of the money of the $50K. I'm sure because if you're a stem cell place, they must. I mean, it's an interesting question of, you know, how do you get your stem cells? But they must have some kind of situation. It looks like Rory's looking things up.
I found a place that does it in New Zealand.
What?
No.
stemcelllife.nz/treatment info/pricing.
Is there a clinic in Palmerston North?
It only costs $14,000 for spinal treatment, and they take Q card. Look at that.
Let's go. They'll take Q card.
They're in Epsom. It's like 10 minutes from me.
Boom. Yeah, exactly.
Let me say,
sweet. I'm gonna head down there right now.
14K is not small, but if 14K literally changed the quality of your life.
I mean, there has been several days that I haven't been able to walk this year because my pain is so high. For $14,000, I would pay $14,000 to not have that happen ever again.
For sure.
Yeah. Sorry to hear, man. That sounds pretty rough.
Oh, look at the smile on Rory's face.
Comes and it goes, right?
Website.
Most days are pretty good.
Yeah, he's definitely bookmarked that. Like,
gonna leave that tab open.
He goes, and I will be accepting clients for anybody listening. I am also now offering nutrition.
Discount code stem cell for my nutrition coaching.
Workouts. Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, awesome.
It is
all right,
what
boys.
It is.
I think we'll leave it at that. It's been a good solid 2 and a bit hours.
It only took us an hour to get onto our first actual topic, which was that's a record, I think.
I don't think we had any topics, did we? I was going to talk about the IPF Worlds, but that didn't happen, so that's okay.
This was not. I remember when we were doing this. I'm like, are we doing an IPF Worlds preview show, division by division, or what are we doing here? But fuck it, man, we hit some good content. I think we got some good discussions.
Stem cells, chess.
Yeah,
dude.
We made a lot of enemies, though.
Transgender, Hulk Hogan. Yeah, let's tag them all in the IG. Yeah,
this will be a weird. They put those timeline things. People will be looking at them like, what the hell? This is all over the place.
Yeah, the topic times.
The topics. They're like, what? Like Hulk Hogan's meatballs and fucking the whole nine. It's like, what happened here?
Hulk Hogan's meatballs.
Yeah. How did they link Hulk Hogan meatballs to like stem cell research? And someone goes out,
right.
you know.
Yeah. You got to find out.
I'm going to put that in the subject heading, in the heading. Awesome. Right, lads. Rory, thank you so much for coming on. It's been awesome. We'd love to get you back on, considering you're 25 minutes down the road.
It's been a pleasure.
And 6, thank you again, mate. I know it's what Saturday afternoon for you, isn't it?
Yeah, 7 p.m. on a Saturday, man. It's good.
Well,
I got
you're the life of the party, aren't you? Yeah.
That's it.
You guys still on lockdown?
We're out now, man. We're out.
Oh.
We just kind of got out. I think it was just like a couple of weeks ago, whatever. So we're out, man. We're going to like the restaurants and bars are open and freaking like, you know, all of our sports are back on and it's crazy.
Nice.
We're heavily vaccinated over here, so it's not totally back to normal, but we're looking pretty good, man.
Nice. You've had your shot?
Double vax, man. Almost everybody I know has been double vax. Like
Nice.
Double vax, baby.
double vax.
Did you get a sticker? Did you get a sticker? Or?
Did I get a sticker?
Lollipop.
You have to wear a
We're
badge
like back
now?
to grade school. You're like, let me see your sticker. No, I don't even think I got a sticker, and I'm a little upset. But yeah, man, we got pretty good in terms of all that. So
How's your coverage, man? How's your 5G coverage?
Has it gone up?
Yeah. You're picking up the
Suddenly
weird
want to buy a
my
Windows phone?
Oh, gotcha. I didn't pick that up. Yeah, phenomenal. Exactly. Well played, sir.
Well played.
Well
Awesome.
played.
Okay, Jackson, thank you so much.
That's
Rory
right.
and 6. It's been a pleasure, boys. We'll see you all next time.
Yeah.
Let's do it
Jake.
again soon, man. Another
Good shit,
man.
KOTL crossover with Off the Platform.
Nice.
See ya.